Go live. There we go. All right. I believe we are live because I hit the button. What is going on, everybody? This is Randolph Thor 19, the man with the million, back again with another Xbox 2 podcast. And with me, as always, the reason we're doing this on a Saturday and he broke our streak. No! Jez Corden of Windows Central, who had a very probably interesting week, very happy, a Nintendo Direct and a BlizzCon during the same week. What's up, buddy?
I'm pretty good, man. Yeah, sorry for missing the podcast yesterday, but a lot of work to do during an event like that. So I thought the event was today. So I was like, oh well, I can just podcast on Friday and then BlizzCon on Saturday. But I forgot the keynote was actually during our podcast segment, so I had to work, and I apologize for the inconvenience to those who are looking forward to it on Friday, but. Things happen, work happens sometimes, and that's just the way it rolls. So, but yeah, it's been a pretty good week, pretty interesting week for news. Maybe, actually, it was a pretty good week for Xbox news as well, if you take some of the other stuff into consideration. But yeah, it's a pretty busy week. It's been another week where I blinked and it just disappeared, and it's podcast time again. Feels like only 5 minutes ago we did the last podcast.
Yeah, I know,
man,
right?
Where is time going, man? Time just seems to, as I get older, time just seems to get faster and faster. Before I know it, let's not get dark already.
Man, oh, man. I was like, oh man, it's gonna be good. We got Friday. We're gonna do the show. There's some things to talk about. I'm gonna continuously just needle you about that Nintendo Direct that you made me watch. You made me. Jez in the DMs is like, this Nintendo Direct's gonna be amazing. I'm like, oh yeah, you think I should watch it? And he's like, yeah, new Zelda, new Pokemon, new Metroid, and I'm like, really?
What?
I was like, okay, I'll watch that. New Metroid got me interested. I'll check it out.
I think this is a slight bending of the truth here.
Yeah, well, sure. You didn't mention Metroid, but you definitely said the other stuff, and you said I should watch it, So I was like, okay, and then I did, and, I fell asleep about 20 times,
20 times? You might want to see a doctor about that.
I know, right? So, we got a lot here to talk about. This is going to be an interesting show. We want to thank everybody for being here on Saturday. We apologize for not doing the show on Friday. We always aim for Friday. But, Jez had to work. And I knew last week we should have mentioned that because I was like, BlizzCon is Friday. And I was like, and it's about the same time. It was like, is Jez going to be able to do the show? And when I originally mentioned to you, you're like, yeah, it should be no issue. And then a little bit later, you're like, no, I can't have Sam Tolbert work this by himself. I got to do this too. So,
yeah. Ironically, we did end up with a big team of people pitching in. I probably could have done the podcast, but it's kind of bad if I leave everyone at work, being busy, and then I'm just there chilling and chatting with everyone not working, So kind of had to show my face in the war room, is.
Yeah, we know how it is. But I want to give a big shout out to Brian Ezekiel, Daniel Hayes, Dark Spartan, Dark SeGA, channel member, Gunstar, another great channel member of over a year. And if you see a guy with a check mark in the chat, that's the one and only Colt Eastwood. I don't know if you saw it, Jez, but Colt had a big interview with Jason Ronald.
Colt's big league.
Yeah, no, he's big league. Nobody from
rolling up with his Lambo.
Yep. You want to talk about YouTube millions? And being a Hollywood star, I mean, that is Colt Eastwood to a T. I don't get emails from Xbox asking, hey, you want to interview anybody? Nope. But you know what? They definitely email Colt. Be like, next thing you know, the next person on his channel is going to be he'll be interviewing Phil Spencer and Matt Booty and Todd Howard, right?
Yeah, man.
So
Colt's YouTube billionaire. Yeah. You're a millionaire. Colt's hitting the big leagues.
Yeah.
So... remember, drop Colt and a mention, and tell him to remember us all, guys.
Yeah, remember us all.
When he's big and famous. Remember the Xbox community when he's rolling with Ninja and who are the other popular people?
And Markiplier and stuff, right? Yeah.
PewDiePie.
PewDiePie.
No,
So yeah, so
I'm
thanks.
not. I'm not down with the kids, man.
So thanks for everybody for tuning in on Saturday. Pong Soul and Apache and the mod. If you anger him, if you say some dumb stuff, Lethal Papa, he'll put you in your place. But a lot of people here. We appreciate everyone for taking the time out of your day to check out what we're going to be talking about. And we have a new channel member, Ralph Wiggum. Thank you for the support, buddy. Means a lot. So yeah, we got a lot of stuff here to talk about. FPS Boost, wireless headset, Nintendo Direct and BlizzCon, which I'm sure Jez will have a lot to say. Fall Guys coming to Xbox. Bloober team maybe doing Silent Hill. Final Fantasy 14. Them saying nope, no Xbox version because we just don't have the resources. Then saying thanks to Phil Spencer, we've removed obstacles. Like what's going on with all that? There's a lot here to get to. So if you do us a big favor, make sure you hit the like button and subscribe, notification bell, so you're always notified every single time this podcast goes live. And I think this next section is going to be short. We always talk about the games we've been playing. Although I didn't really start anything new this week. I kind of just been playing other stuff, so it won't be that long of a segment. So, Jez, tell the good people in the chat and everybody listening later on, iTunes or Spotify or everywhere else, what have you been playing this week?
I've been playing Pokemon all week. That's all I've been playing, man.
Just Pokemon.
I've been playing Sword and Shield, training Pokemon, and I got Pokemon Let's Go Eevee on Nintendo Switch. And it's pretty cool, man. Pretty cool game. You should play it, man, for charity.
No, that's not happening. I keep on telling you that. You keep on trying to get me to play it for charity, but I keep on telling you that is not happening. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. So not happening. I'll play Metroid Prime 4 for charity or something.
Metro Prime 4 for charity.
Mm-hmm.
That wouldn't be very charitable, since you probably enjoy that.
Exactly. That'd be fun. I'll actually play it, you know what I mean?
But I want you to suffer. Oh,
you want me to suffer.
But nah, I just been playing Pokemon, man. Like I've been so busy this week. Like Pokemon's the best kind of game that you can pick up and put down because it's turn-based. So like if I get a call from a meeting or something, I can literally it's just stop what I'm doing mid-battle or whatever and just put the controller down. Don't even need to pause it. So it's sort of the great kind of game to play when you just want to have something that uses no brain power whatsoever. So that's just pretty much what I've been doing. I'm ready for big new games at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I saw there are games in my backlog that I want to play. I really want to play Dragon Quest. I really want to get around to Yakuza. I really want to play the Hitman games, but I feel like those are more of an investment, and I want to give them my full attention. So I'm sort of waiting until I've got a quieter period to play those. But yeah, that's pretty much what I've been playing, man. It's just been busy times. It's kind of annoying as you get older. Like, time to play stuff gets diminished over time. I like that whole idea of having a 4-day work week. Have you seen that movement?
No,
to have a 4-day work week.
A 4-day work week. So what? Like Tuesday, Wednesday, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then
Friday off. Yeah. Like there's some countries are trialing that, or some companies. Like there's studies that say it could make productivity higher and offset the loss from having one less workday a week or something. I don't know, but I'm totally in favor of that. But yeah, that's it, man. I've not been playing anything. So what is the next big game that's coming out really at this point?
What? That's a good question. From Xbox first party, I guess we could break it down. Xbox first party. I mean, Halo at the end of the year. I mean, we've always said that this year was going to be very light on first party, that most of Xbox's year was going to be basically those 30 exclusives that we talked about, like The Ascent and Scorn, and a lot of those games.
I want to play that. The Ascent, that looks great.
I know Psychonauts 2 is supposed to be coming out at some point this year, in the first half, but we don't know when yet. The next big Sony PlayStation exclusive is Returnal, which comes out at the end of April. So even still, that's about another 2 months to wait. and then Ratchet and Clank comes out in June. So still, that's 4 months away at that point. I think like third party Outriders comes out at the beginning of April, which does seem pretty interesting.
Looks good.
Yeah,
There's a demo coming for that soon too. Right?
Yeah, the demo comes out this week, I believe, on Thursday or Friday. I think on the 25th.
So that game looks deceptively decent, which is kind of surprising. But I'm definitely going to give that a look. It's kind of like they don't want you to call it a service game. They want you to think of it more in the vein of Borderlands, I think. But it probably is going to be a service game.
Yeah, and Resident Evil 8, and Mass Effect Legendary Edition are in May.
Are you going to play through Legendary Edition again?
Yeah, I kind of want to, but I don't want to play through Mass Effect 1 because of how horrible and dated the gameplay is. Like, there needs to be
when they announced it, yeah, when they first announced it, I was kind of like excited, but then after a little while, I kind of felt like you, like, do I want to play Mass Effect 1 again? I don't know.
That's the thing. It's like, I would like to play like Mass Effect 2's, I think, and all around, like when you take like story and gameplay and everything about it, it's the superior game. Like hands down. Yeah. Mass Effect 1 story is great and it is the first, but that gameplay is rigid and unforgiving. And so when I think of like doing a playthrough of Mass Effect series, it's just like, oh man, but like I would have to actually play through Mass Effect 1 and play through all that horrible combat and Mako driving, like puke, right? We'll see. I mean, it comes out the week after Resident Evil 8, and obviously Resident Evil 8 is day one. And even Deathloop is end of May, which is something I'm very interested in ever since the first trailer. It's the Bethesda game from Arcane Studios, and I love Arcane. I love the games they make, exclusive to PlayStation for a year. So we'll see. Like, obviously, precedent is new games over the older stuff. But I definitely do want. I mean, I love Mass Effect, so I definitely, it'll be calling me. It definitely will be. But
you can make Mass Effect 1 a bit more bearable if you play Biotic, because at least then you can throw enemies and play with the physics. That's how I suffer through Mass Effect 1. Like did you ever play a Biotic in Mass Effect 1 and max out Singularity?
No, I didn't.
Wait, the frame rate would absolutely tank if you in Mass Effect 1 if you were playing a Biotic and you had maximum skill points in Singularity, which basically like makes a little black hole and all the mobs ragdoll around it. It absolutely killed the frame rate. It was hilarious. And then there's this one level, that level where, oh man, what is it now? Is it the Thorian? That giant plant thing that mind controls people.
Damn, what's the name of that? It's not the Rachni, right?
No, the Thorian.
The Thorium, cool. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, so like on that level, there's like an area that's sort of like, I think it's meant to be a bar or something. And that room there's like a battle in that room, and it's full of chairs. And if you use Singularity in that room, and all the chairs get sucked in too, and you get like frame rate on the 360 went down to like 10 FPS. So it's trying to handle all these flying objects, but that can actually make it kind of fun. But I guess on the Series X it won't have those similar frame rate issues, making Biotic even more bearable. So I really wish they'd actually just done a full remake of Mass Effect 1. I really do. Like, with the Mass Effect Andromeda engine or whatever. I think, like, they could have kept all the voice acting the same, but just, like, redo the combat, maybe strip out the planetary landing stuff. I think they could have remade that and done a really good job of it, but I don't know. Remakes on the level of Final Fantasy VII Remake seem to be, like, just super rare for some reason.
Super rare indeed. Yeah, I mean, so like what I've been playing this week is basically I've been dabbling in Hitman 3, doing some more assassinations. I don't know how much more I can get out of the game. I have about like 70 hours in it. The achievements I have left are basically like level 20 in every single map, which is not something I really want to do. So I think I'm coming to the end of my time with Hitman, which was incredible. Can't recommend that game enough. And I mean that's pretty much it. We had another huge snowstorm again here in Chicago, Jez. I don't know if you saw. I don't know if you saw also. Shout out to everybody in Texas. Hopefully you get your power and your heat back soon because Texas was not prepared for the cold snap that hit them.
Yeah, I saw some stuff about that. It's bloody awful, man.
Yeah, we got 13 inches. I forget what day it was. Like it was basically we were just, and the snow that we had in the previous last time this all happened hadn't melted, so it was just more snow on top of snow, and it's probably all the snow is just gonna be sitting here until probably end of March, April, before it all essentially starts to melt. So, Hitman 3 for me, I love it, and yeah, I'm kind of looking at my backlog at this point. I know I have a couple games I want to play on PlayStation, like Ratchet and Clank and Horizon Zero Dawn, but then I have a few games I want to play on Xbox that I haven't beaten. I'm trying to think, like Devil May Cry 5. I'd have to look at my pins because I have my backlog pinned on my system, and it's like, oh man, what do I what can I play? So yeah, not much video game playing this week. Just trying to do all the assassinations I can in Hitman 3, but I'm kind of like running out of things to do, and I don't want to have to try to do all the challenges just to get the achievements for it, because I don't really care about the achievements anymore, which is unfortunate because you know how much I loved achievements, Jez.
Yeah,
I mean, I call myself the man with the million for a reason, and when I look,
thought it was because you're a YouTube millionaire.
Yeah, I wish. Damn, like I looked on True Achievements the other day, and I'm like I'm still in the top 100 for gamer score. But like when I look at the achievement scene now, I just kind of like I don't know what's going on. You got a guy who literally releases a game every single week, and it's like 10 minutes to get to 1,000, and then he just updates the game every 6 months with another 1,000 points. If
really?
If Xbox
Why does Xbox allow that?
So like the thing with Xbox is you can add 1,000 gamer score every half a year, every 6 months, right? Up to a total of 5,000. So nobody's really been taking advantage of this. There are some games like Sea of Thieves, right, that will add stuff every time they add new content, but they don't add a lot, right? It's usually like a 15-point gamer score or like a 20-point. Well, there's this one developer who's basically, or publisher rather, who's basically taking these student games, like finding them on Steam, right? Being like, hey, I'll release your game on Xbox and give it super easy achievements that people can beat in 10 minutes, right? And people will buy them because there is a very small but dedicated fan base who will buy games. So in this scenario, this guy's figured out a way of people exchanging money for gamer score disguised as games, right? Because you play it and the achievements are so ridiculously easy you don't have to play for long. But he also is taking advantage of the rules, so he can update the game every 6 months with 1,000 gamer score. So he releases a game, and then a couple months later he can add another 1,000 to 2,000, and then a few months after that he can add another one to 3,000. So he has like 10 games that have 3,000 gamer score that you can get in like 15 minutes. And now he's adding Windows 10 versions of those games, which will all have the same. So in essentially 5 years, essentially 3 years, you'll be able, maybe even 10 years, like in 10 years, you'll be able to get a million gamer score by like spending $1,000, and you can probably get it in like 4 hours, essentially. Because like, it's just all these games he's going to release are eventually going to be 5,000 points, which you can get in 10 minutes, and then they're going to have a stack on Windows 10. And if Microsoft really doesn't do something about it, like cut that in the, nip it in the bud, then they're gonna, yeah. I mean,
I might write about that because that's interesting. I'll write about that. Let's draw some attention to that.
I mean, trust me, I know there has been attention because, this stuff has been, people at Xbox have, been are made aware and of it, and so I don't know if anything will happen because of it, but yeah.
Let's generate some outrage then.
Yeah. So, anyways, I know that's really talk about achievements and stuff anymore on the channel because I just don't care. But like, part of it, the reason is because of this stuff. It's just like it used to be fun. Now it's just like, I couldn't care less. Like it's so stupid. Kid Smooth, shout out to Kid Smooth, the best bot. He says, "Give me that publisher now." The publisher I'm talking about is Zilton, Xiliton. You can search for those games on True Achievements. Radalaika is also another publisher that releases an easy 1,000 gamer score every single week, kid, for like $5. So if you want to get your gamer score up, you can do it if you're willing to pay, but at least it's really cheap. So Brian Harris wants to know, Ryan, how many small indie games have you played that you didn't like just to get a million achievement mark? I mean, there were some that I didn't enjoy, but there's no difference between small indie games or big AAA games or, big games.
Hey,
so,
that reminds me of a really old Xbox 2 meme.
What?
About Barbie horse racing.
Uh-huh.
What was that game you played for achievements?
Barbie Puppy Rescue. Shut up, Jez, why do you gotta bring this up?
But I thought it was a horse game.
Well, there was also My Horse and Me Too as well.
Well, there you go.
Well, the problem, but the thing is like
you made the problem worse. Were they actually hard to get achievements in?
I mean, they took hours to complete, and they were shorter than everything else. So the thing was back then, you had to play 5 or 6 hours to get 1,000, and that was considered short when everything else was longer. Nowadays, most of these easy games that come out are 5 to 10 minutes long, and they're also $5. And also, like, there wasn't a lot of games back then either, so you had to play everything that came out if you wanted to retain your leaderboard position, which I cared about to a certain extent because I wanted to be like at least 10th in the world, which I did. I was like 5th, so like you had to play the game because everybody else was going to play it if you wanted to keep up. I'm just saying, like, now it's a little bit different because there's so many indie games that come out every week alongside everything else that there's an abundance of choice. And somebody just, basically his whole business model is, hey, we're going to sell gamer score to people and disguised as games. And, you give them $5 and you get your 1,000 gamer score in 10 minutes. And, sometimes if you wait, it gets 2,000 and 3,000. So it's like essentially I have all these games too. So it's just like I could, if I wanted to, really just like spend 2 hours and I could probably have like 100,000 gamer score in like maybe 5 hours if I really wanted to. It probably would take longer than that, honestly, but it's definitely cut down on time. So anyways, enough about the segue about achievements.
That's an interesting story though. I'm gonna write about that.
You really gonna write about achievements? I mean, cool. I mean, the more eyes on it from Microsoft, the better. I mean, like, I really want them to do completions and actually update achievements in general because they haven't done so since 2016. And I think it will take pressure because I think their focus is on a lot of other things, like the Xbox mobile app and the PC app, and I think a lot of the people that could be working on such features aren't for whatever reason. So it'd be if you could highlight it because you got a big platform, that'd be cool. Maybe Phil Spencer sees that and is like, yeah, it's about time we make some changes, or people are like, you know what, this is pretty shady. Either way, it's funny because not many people know about this, and I know my buddy Pickamus Prime, who's listening right now, who I believe is like 3rd in the world at Gamerscore, who I used to do a podcast with back in the day, called Gamerscore Popcast. I'm sure he's listening right now, and he's probably upset. He's like, Rand's giving away all the secrets, and like, don't change. He's probably like, don't change anything, Rand. I want it the way it is. I want my super easy gamer score. I want to get to 3 million gamer score before it all changes or whatever. Sorry, Pig. Sorry. Anyways, yeah. So let's get into the topics. What do you want to talk about first? You want to talk about? Let's talk about Nintendo first. Let's talk about good old Nintendo Direct, Jez.
You upset some Nintendo fans this week.
Well, you know what's weird? Reading through my mentions, a lot of people agreed with me. A lot of people, were obviously like clearly, I think that tweet was meant for the people who know me and know that like I'm joking around about a lot of this stuff. I don't really care. It was more like clearly I'm not the audience that Nintendo's going after, right? What they do is never really going to appeal to me whatsoever. And the only reason I watched it was because of you. You were like, please watch this. Please.
I'm not.
Yeah, you did. You totally did. And you know it. Please watch this.
I think this is fake news. I think this is fake news, man.
So I watched the Nintendo Direct, and I still stand by what I tweeted, though. And and if you're a Nintendo fan listening to this, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you got everything you wanted, right? Like if you're looking forward to Bravely Default 2 and Project Triangle Square Circle or whatever that game's called, and the 12-year-old port of Skyward Sword and Splatoon 3. Like if you're looking forward to all that stuff, I'm happy for you. I was watching some reactions where from people who were like crying when Skyward Sword was announced because it was their favorite Zelda game, and that's great. Like seeing other people happy makes me happy, And it's like, okay, that's cool. Like I'm just not the audience for this Nintendo stuff. So suffice to say, it was just like I didn't care for the Nintendo Direct whatsoever. I was watching it and I was like, okay, Ninja Gaiden Master Collection, Stubbs the Zombie. Are we really in an event talking about games from the OG Xbox PS2 era? Like, all right, whatever. Oh, Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare, which came out a couple years ago. I mean, I know the bigger story there is they were able to get Frostbite running on the Switch because it runs on it. But I was shocked by how a lot of the games they showed were of older, nature, right? Combined with some of the new stuff. But it definitely seemed like if you were an RPG fan, Nintendo definitely seems to be the platform because they had a lot like Secret of Mana remake, right? Was it or remaster or an HD remaster or something?
Legend of Mana.
Legend of Mana
HD remaster. Yeah.
Which for whatever reason is coming to every platform except for Xbox. I saw your buddy, our friend Miles, very upset about that.
Yeah, Miles is not happy about that.
And it's just like, what do you expect if it's a Japanese game, and especially if it's an RPG? It's not going to come to Xbox because they don't find value in the user base because the user base doesn't buy those games in large enough quantities to make it worthwhile for the publisher. Does Miles not know this? Did you explain it to him at least?
We talked about it on the Xbox Chat Days on our channel earlier. Yeah, we went into loads of theories about it. This is one theory I've had recently about some at least Square Enix's games. Is that they will bring a game to Xbox as long as Microsoft gives them some of that Xbox Game Pass money. That certainly seems to be a trend here. Which could that be an unintended consequence of Xbox Game Pass, where they're training publishers to, hold them to ransom and be like, yeah, we'll bring our cool games to your console if you give us some sweet and juicy cash flow up front for it. Could that be a thing? I don't know.
It could be a thing for Japanese publishers for sure. Because I don't think they want to put their games on Xbox anyways. But then they if enough people complain, maybe Microsoft comes to us with that Game Pass money and makes the port worth doing. But are you going to come to Square Enix with Game Pass money for Legend of Mana HD? Probably not.
Yep. Probably not.
So the game just skips, and it's an unfortunate situation. Not having a game on your platform is not good. The fact that Genshin Impact isn't on Xbox is not a good thing, even if you're not a fan of Genshin Impact. The fact that how big that game is, and it's not on Xbox is a problem. And it's not like there's exclusivity for it, right? So it's just because the devs don't feel it's worth their time, and that's a problem.
I also think there's a potentiality there that Tencent see Microsoft as a big competitor, and they see this as a way to undermine them, which might also be an explanation of why Microsoft is so aggressive buying studios right now. Because if it comes to a point where Tencent, which is a cloud provider and competes with Microsoft in other business areas, if it comes to a point where Tencent wants to undermine Microsoft's business by buying studios and then not providing their games to Xbox to make Xbox seem bad, it puts Microsoft in a position where they literally have to buy studios to compete with this company. So when, like in the past on this podcast, when we've talked about Tencent being a threat, that was not like speculation. Tencent is a threat. And I wouldn't be surprised if Genshin Impact isn't on Xbox for tactical reasons rather than just a case of people not wanting it. Because let's face it, that game is massive and it's global and people would play it on Xbox, like definitely. So I think they're doing it to undermine Microsoft personally.
I mean, it's certainly possible. We got a question here from Andy Tolley, 123 in the super chat. He says, did Jez ever get an email back from B&O? Is this the headset they were working on? Have a great weekend.
Bangs & Olufsen's headset. No, I didn't. I might try a different PR agency. But they're quite hard to contact sometimes. Sometimes tech companies are, but yeah, that's interesting. We are going to talk about the Xbox headset situation in a bit, the new Xbox headset, which is actually absurdly good.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Yeah, I don't want to hear your take on it. We'll get to that in a little bit. Blast the Base says, waiting on Super Nintendo Switch any day now. Yes, the Switch Pro, which obviously they weren't going to reveal at this show. I do think it was funny. Like, look, if you're a Nintendo fan and you love the Switch and you love their games, like, I'm happy for you, right? It's just not a platform for me. I own it, but like nothing really interests me too much. Like if Jez wants to be like, hey, you know what, Rand? I want to get you to play a Switch game for charity. And I'd be like, okay, but we've done Pokemon. We're not doing Pokemon again. He's like, I want you to play Breath of the Wild for charity. I consider playing Breath of the Wild for charity. So I consider that.
Maybe we should like do like a live Splatoon stream for charity or something.
But like,
game.
I know most people will be like, well, Rand might actually enjoy Breath of the Wild, so it's not fun because he wouldn't hate it. But either way, I was just watching the show, and because we'll critique PlayStation show and we'll critique Xbox's show, and in no way, in shape, or form am I saying like you should take my criticisms of Nintendo to heart, because like obviously I'm not the target audience for it, but I do feel that if Microsoft, right, like say it wasn't a Nintendo Direct, say it was an Xbox Spring Showcase, and that Spring Showcase included, Stubbs the Zombies and Ninja Gaiden Master Chief Collection, and also, hey, we have a Halo 3 remake or a Halo 3 remaster that we're selling for $60. And it was just a bunch of
old... No, not remake. Halo 3 HD.
Halo 3 HD, a remaster for $60, right? But then again, that's not the worst Halo, so I guess it would have to be like maybe like Halo 3 ODST. Oh, even some then a lot of people consider old. Either way, like a HD remaster of a Halo game for full price. I'd be sitting there, I'd be like, this was the worst show Microsoft has ever put on. And same thing for PlayStation. Like, there's some aspects of the PlayStation's last shows where they showed like Bug Snacks and some other stuff that people meme on. But it's just the expectations of the two audiences are different. Like Xbox gamers and PlayStation gamers expect, huge third-party AAA games and big-time exclusives and stuff, where Nintendo isn't really that. They're lucky to get like big-time third-party support, right? So expectations are different, and everybody loves the Nintendo first party. So I don't know. It was just funny because Jez wanted me to watch it, and I did, and I was like, ooh, yeesh. And who knows? Maybe their next direct is going to be better. I did find it funny though, Jez, when the producer of the Legend of Zelda series comes on, and he's just like, I know you saw me and thought there would be Breath of the Wild 2 news, but I'm sorry, there's not. And that's like the whole Japanese culture of like apologizing, like, oh, I'm so sorry, what that sort of thing. And there's
Well, dude, it's that's just Blizzard were like that, man. When they were like, after that whole Diablo Immortal thing, I think just the whole gaming industry in general is in a state of apology, and they're just so scared of offending the fans and and creating negative memes like Diablo Immortal and stuff. Like the Diablo Immortals got like a mention for like 5 seconds at BlizzCon, and then just to remind people that it exists, and then they moved on like really quickly. And then like that, like last, do you remember? And the Diablo team had to publish an article saying,
yeah, I remember.
like, we apologize for like our handling of this and stuff like that. It was gamers are mean, man.
It would be like
mean.
it'd be like at a summer showcase, and everybody's expecting to see Perfect Dark gameplay or Fable, and say Microsoft haven't had plans to show Fable or Perfect Dark because they're not coming until 2023. It'd be like if Matt Booty comes out and he's like, I know you saw me and thought there would be Perfect Dark gameplay and Fable gameplay, but there's not. You know what I mean? And people will be like, ah, damn. But do you think Breath of the Wild's coming this year? Because I have a inkling that with the Switch Pro coming eventually, right? I think
Breath even confirmed.
I mean, it kind of is, but like, here's my. I think Breath of the Wild launches with the Switch Pro, March of next year. Like 5 years after they launched the Switch originally with Breath of the Wild, they'll launch the Switch Pro with Breath of the Wild 2. What do you think?
I think that could be a reason for not showing it off today. That they want to have a big headline game for announcing the new console and stuff. Like, how old's the Switch now? How many years?
It came out in 2017.
So 4 years is.
It's almost
kind of weird
years.
though, because it's like it's just sort of it's still in such huge demand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do they even need a new one, or is it just a case of like at least keeping pace to some degree with the 1080p versions of like existing AAA games and stuff? Like, I mean, is this like more of a technological reason to release a new console than actually needing one? But I don't know. My Nintendo Switch battery is flat, so I can't play it unless it's plugged into the dock. So I would very much like a new Switch, but at the same time, it's sort of like it's so weird that we get all these rumors without anything really concrete to back it. But I don't know. Nintendo stuff has leaked before,
yeah.
So
Let's move on from the Nintendo Direct. Although
do we have to? Can't we just make the whole podcast?
No, we can't, because
you didn't even ask me for my opinion.
Okay, I will in a second. I'm gonna get through some of these super chats. Shane Tomlin says, "Hit the like button, peeps." Indeed, if you guys are enjoying the show, make sure you hit the like button. Rapid Ryan says, "Excited to get the new official Xbox headset. Keep up the great works, guys. My favorite podcast." Well,
Thanks, buddy.
That is high praise that we're your favorite podcast, and yeah, we're going to talk about the headset soon. We definitely will. Georgie says, Rand thoughts on Conker Obsidian. Jez knows. Well, that's actually a topic, so we'll get to that when we get to it. Stadia Caesar says, tell Jez Genshin Impact isn't even from Tencent. Jez, is this true? Did you just lie to everybody who was listening to the show? Is Genshin Impact not even from Tencent? Oh, man. You're wrong on that one, Jez.
Sure that it was.
According to Stadia Caesar, it's not even from.
If I am spreading fake news, I apologize profusely. But
I don't even know who makes Genshin Impact, so Jez was the one. If it was wrong, it's all Jez's fault. So, all right, Jez, you being the Nintendo fan, what'd you think of the Direct?
Oh, sorry, no, I am completely wrong. Genshin Impact is nothing to do with Tencent. So I apologize profusely about that. I don't know why I thought that. I think I just assumed that it was. Did I get it mixed up with something else? I don't know. But yeah, Genshin Impact basically an indie game from a startup company, according to this. This article
It's
says
from
Genshin Impact.
MiHoYo.
Miho, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
My
I'm
buddy
really,
Lovebug
really sorry
Gopher,
about that.
my buddy Lovebug Gopher, who may or may not be listening, absolutely loves that game. I think he spent like $1,000 on that game maybe so far.
Oh my
$500
god!
on it or something. I don't know. I was in the
I'm
party
really
when
sorry about that.
I was in the party when he rolled a new character and he literally sounded like, you know, he sounded so happy when he got this character that he rolled for or whatever. Kodos Magoat says, I just wish I could get Xbox achievements in Nintendo games. I know Jez agrees, and I'm sure he'll reiterate that point in a minute. Dead Planet says, could there be competing Silent Hill Xbox IPs? We'll talk about that too. It's actually a topic. And Commander Shepard, any thoughts on these growing rumors of Star Wars Knights of the Republic remake remaster? I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast in the Citadel. The rumor is that Asper Media is making the Star Wars Knights of the Republic remake, right?
Yeah, that is the rumor.
That is the
Asper
rumor.
Media, who are owned by Embracer Group, aren't they?
They recently were purchased, and they said that one of the reasons why is because they had a $70 million a AAA game in production, and they're the ones that have been porting these old Star Wars games. So a lot of people think that is the studio working on an old Republic. And I see people being like, whoa, $1,000? I don't know if it's 1,000, but it's definitely a lot of money. Lovebug Gopher loves his Genshin Impact and his waifu characters. And he's probably going to hate me because he's probably not listening to this. Otherwise, he would have said something. So when he listens to this later, he's going to be upset at me. Anyways, Jez, thoughts on the Nintendo Direct?
I liked it.
Of course you did.
A little bit.
Not a surprise whatsoever.
Nah, it's like there was some. It's like you say, they had like a load of cool RPGs that they announced. I thought that like Final Fantasy Tactics looking game, Project Triangle or whatever it's called, that looks amazing. And that's right up my alley. Turn-based tactics, I'm all about that. Slow-paced games that I can sort of multitask with. I really like the look of that. And Bravely Default 2 looks amazing too, and then Monster Hunter Rise is going to be amazing as well. And they showed off some new features of that, so all that stuff was cool. But yeah, I have to admit, Rand, I have to agree with you that if this had been an Xbox show, I would kind of been like, oh wow, Xbox has got some JRPGs, but at the same time, I would have been like, it's kind of like, for me, it would have felt kind of like if they'd ended a show with Crackdown 3.
Yeah, that wouldn't be.
I mean, I'm not. First of all, like Splatoon, like it's kind of like, I don't know. It's a fun-ish game, but it's massively strangleheld by Nintendo's terrible network infrastructure, which they are finally upgrading. They had to upgrade their network infrastructure for Monster Hunter Rise because the combat just wouldn't have worked otherwise. So they are upgrading their network infrastructure, which is cool and should make games like Smash Bros. and Splatoon play a bit better. But I don't know, man. Like I feel like only Nintendo can get away with some of the stuff they get away with, like that Skyward Sword thing for $60. Like,
I mean, especially when you compare that to Diablo 2 Resurrected, right?
Which is $30, I think.
Dude, I'm trying to just imagine an Xbox show where it's like, and we got one more thing for you, and it's Crackdown.
Yeah, like they announced, like the end of the Xbox show is they announced a HD, not a remaster, but a HD port of like, I don't know, Halo 4 or something. So like they're selling Halo 4 4K for $60, and that's their. And then they announced like Crackdown 3 multiplayer or something. Maybe that's unfair. Maybe like Splatoon's not that bad, but it's kind of, it was just sort of underwhelming, I guess. I would have been like, at least mention the fact that they're upgrading the network infrastructure, but I guess some people just don't really care about that stuff.
But I will say, Fall Guys, one of the announcements of it coming to the Nintendo Switch, the next day, they announced it's coming to Xbox. So Fall Guys, I did see a couple people talking about it in chat that they thought it was a shame it wasn't announced for Xbox, but it was. So
Yeah, they snuck it in there
they
afterwards.
must have had what, a 24-hour embargo on the announcement coming to Xbox. So Fall
Yeah.
Guys coming to Xbox summer, presumably probably a year after the exclusivity runs out and the PlayStation ends. There's a lot of people that talk about how this game is dead. It was incredibly popular when it first came out, PlayStation Plus on PC. But I always like online people talk about, oh, it's coming to these other platforms, but it's dead. Fall Guys isn't really dead, is it? It's just not as popular as it once was, right?
Yeah, it's not dead. Like a lot of people still play it. Like it's one of those games you can just sort of jump on and have a quick blast and then jump off. So it's not really one of those games that you get super invested in, I guess. But I'm glad it's coming to Xbox because, like I say, it's the kind of game that you can jump on and off and play real quickly.
Hey, we do have a question for you, Jez, from
Hit me.
Huta, who says, I want to politely ask Jez to stir the water around why hasn't EA Play not been arrived to Game Pass PC yet? And why isn't anyone criticizing Xbox for this? It has been 4 months since their OG debut date.
I
I think it's actually been like 2 months, but
I didn't notice that. I suppose. I mean, they did announce that it was coming to PC, right?
they did. It was supposed to come in December, and then they delayed it like 2 days before it was supposed to launch.
I wonder if Microsoft misannounced that or something. But I don't know. I'm guessing this is something to do with EA being funny about it or something. But I don't know. I'll look into that. I'll reach out to PR and say what's the dealio with this. See if they can drop me a statement or something. I'll reach out to EA and reach out to Microsoft, and then I can just be like, neither of them wanted to comment or something. So yeah, I'll leave that with me. I'll look into it.
Do you think it's a miss for Fall Guys not to be on Game Pass day one? Think that'll impact the title's popularity on the console, or do you think there's millions or large amounts of people willing to spend $20 on Fall Guys on the Switch and Xbox to play it, even though it's been out for a year on other platforms?
I have no idea. I mean, they could do something like some kind of tie-in. Like I don't know. They've already got a Doom guy skin in Fall Guys, so like maybe they could do like I don't know, a Master Chief skin if you buy it that week or something. There are things they could do to ramp up hype and interest in that. I think there'll be appetite for it, especially if it's pretty dry in terms of what else is coming out around then. So like you say, it's a bit of a dry year for Xbox this year potentially. So no, I don't think I think Game Pass will definitely help it. In fact, it's kind of weird that Microsoft and Fall Guys Devolver haven't explored that, because wasn't Carry On straight into Game Pass?
Indeed, it was. Yeah. And like when Katana Zero came to Xbox, that one right into Game Pass.
Maybe they don't like Game Pass. Maybe they think Game Pass was bad for Carry On.
I think probably they feel that people would pay the money for Fall Guys, and that eventually they could probably get a deal for Game Pass later instead of right away. So,
yeah, that's fair.
So, Aquaman says, for latency and overall features, is the Elite version 2 controller better than the newer Series X and S controllers? Well, so not right now for latency, as far as I know. The latency stuff is exclusive to the new controllers, so it's definitely not for that. Overall features, I mean, the Elite series, the Elite version 2 has more features for sure than the newer controllers. However, you do have to pay a premium, $60 versus $150, and the Elite controllers are known to not really last very long, unfortunately. I had parts on mine break. I've had friends who had multiple Elites break. For whatever reason, for as expensive as they are, they seem not to last very long. I don't know why. I don't know what's up with the people who make. Like I'm still like, they had that problem with the original. Remember, the originals didn't last long, but then same kind of thing happened with the Elite version 2. Like, things just break on it after a certain amount of time, and it really shouldn't, considering how expensive these things are, right?
I like my Elite has lasted. I mean, the only complaint I got with mine is that the rubber nubs fell off on the trigger locks.
Yeah,
I have
both
no
both
idea.
both of those fell off on mine. Both the one on the left and the one on the right. And I have no idea how. I don't use the trigger locks. I don't know how they fell off.
They're not held on by anything. They're literally just they're not held on by anything. Literally, gravity made them fall off. I have no idea who at Microsoft thought it was a good idea to put little rubber nubs on those, and then not even attach them with any glue or nothing. They literally held on by nothing, so they will fall off no matter who, no matter when you get it. Eventually, those nubs will fall off, and you will lose them. And not only that, you won't even be able to reattach them. I have tried to reattach mine with glue, hot glue, and the rubber is like a weird material, porous or something. They just won't stick on. So I gave up in the end, and I didn't want to accidentally glue my trigger lock into sort of a locked position either. So, so that is definitely a fault with it. And to be fair, if you're paying that much for a controller, you kind of don't want anything to go wrong with it. But that's the only thing that's gone wrong with mine. Like the battery life is sick, and I use it for the battery dock, which more than anything. But you can get really good battery docks for the regular controllers too, from Controller Gear, I believe, makes them, who were recently purchased by Razer. So Controller Gear Xbox docks are probably going to get a lot more expensive soon. But yeah, I honestly at this point I would probably just stick with the regular controller and just buy like a good charge dock for it, or buy like a Bbon cool rechargeable batteries or something to get similar levels of battery life, or maybe not similar. Like the battery life on the Elite controller is absurd. It lasts like a whole week of really heavy usage. That's the best thing about it, I think. But I wouldn't. I don't know. They're tough to recommend because they ain't polished. Like they still haven't nailed the sort of manufacturing process, and some of the design stuff, like those rubber nubs, is really weird. And like you say, Rand, I've got loads of friends. Mine hasn't broken, but I've got plenty of friends whose has broken. So
well, it's
tough to recommend them.
There's a class action lawsuit going on with the DualSense PS5 controller as well for stick drift.
I didn't see that.
Yeah. I mean, stick drift is always a thing. It's always been a thing. I think somebody even took Nintendo to court over the Joy-Con stick drift, and
yeah, that's the thing. Yeah,
but the problem is, I think all these companies use the same manufacturer for the thumbsticks, which is why they all drift, because it's all the same company that makes them. At least,
is it like they've got some kind of patent on it?
I don't know, but like, they're not meant to last forever. And I saw VGC put out an article today where they said that the DualSense like sticks have like a life expectancy of like 417 hours or something of playtime.
That's not great.
And then it might start to drift. Now, I haven't noticed any drift in any of my controllers yet, but I do tend to usually get drift in the sticks about after a year of use. Usually on the Xbox, because that's where I play. But like, stick drift ain't no joke. It sucks, because then it's like you gotta completely either you live with it, or you just buy another controller for $60-$70.
So that's the thing. Like my Elite controller, the stick is slightly drifting now. One of them is. I think like I could probably solve that by adjusting the dead zone on it, which is something it's interesting. Like there's loads of features on the Elite controller that you can tweak, like the resistance of the sticks, which is nice. And that's probably because I lowered the resistance on my sticks so I could like, move slightly faster when I'm playing Overwatch and stuff. So that's probably not helping with my drift sensation. But I don't know, at this point I kind of feel like I wouldn't recommend them anymore. I just use the new one that's got like the share button on it, and also the improved latency. It's like it's only slight improved latency, but it's like it does feel good, especially if you've got a TV with FreeSync, to have that like minimum latency possible between the game and your frames on your TV. I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. So Fall Guys is on Xbox. I know I think you and Miles talked a little bit about this on your show today, but There's a heavy rumor going around that maybe Bloober Team, the makers of the Medium and Observer, are doing a Silent Hill game as well. What did you guys talk about on your show, about your other show? This is your show, damn it.
Yeah.
Because like there was the report
Wasn't
that
sure.
Konami is licensing out the Silent Hill IP, and there was always this rumor since for like a year now. Like Dusk Golem on Twitter said there was two Silent Hill games, one potentially made by Sony, and this other one multi-platform. And it sounds like Bloober Team might be working on a new Silent Hill. That's probably multi-platform, or potentially Sony might be working on another one. What do you think about this stuff?
Well, like Miles loves this whole conspiracy theory.
Mm-hmm.
On our other show. Um, like I hadn't looked into it too much. I haven't like looked at rumors and stuff like that because you know I just I don't put any faith in Konami to treat that franchise properly. I did see like when it comes to Bloober Team, Akira Yamoka, who is I apologize if I pronounced that incorrectly, and I most likely have, but Akira Yamoka, who did the music for the original Silent Hill games, and he was on Team Silent, and he also worked on some of the music for the Medium. He was on a podcast where he basically said, "We're working on the." He said something like, "We're working on the game that everyone wants or everyone's talking about." So people took that to mean that Akira Yamoka is working on a new Silent Hill. Um, and then that podcast mysteriously disappeared from the internet afterwards. Um, and then there was also like Bloober Team were in an interview saying that they're working on a major new IP, and also Bloober Team recently hired a combat developer, combat director, or animator, or something
And
along
our
those
first
lines.
like reactions was combat in a Bloober Team game? No way.
Yeah, no way, bro. But that's something you kind of need to have if you're making a Silent Hill game is combat. Like even though like the combat is sort of I don't know, it's not known for its combat, but it's used as a device to deliver tension in those games, and it's pivotal. You know, the sort of panic you feel when you're swinging a weapon awkwardly and you can't aim properly, intentional or not, that added to the fear factor of Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3, and 4, I guess. Although the fear factor of 4 was just kind of how awkward it was to play. They took it too far in Silent Hill 4, I think. Did you ever play Silent Hill 4, The Room?
Uh,
Ran?
I don't think wasn't no 4 was. I played 1, 2, and 3. I don't think I played the room. I played the one after that, and then I played Downpour. What was the one before Downpour? Do you remember?
Silent Hill Homecoming.
Okay, so I played Silent Hill Homecoming, and I played Silent Hill Downpour. And Homecoming and Downpour weren't the best.
Yeah.
I mean, especially in comparison to Silent Hill 1 and 2, right? I never played The Room, so I don't know. I don't have any thoughts on that. So
Like the room was like a really cool concept. Like you were sort of like you ended up back in like an apartment that was in you couldn't escape this apartment. There were weird chains on the door, and you couldn't open any of the windows or break them or nothing. You were stuck in this apartment and nobody was aware of your presence. It was like you were there but you were not there. And then like you had to like go through like this hole in the wall and end up in like a Silent Hill world kind of level. But there's all sorts of weird quirks with the game. Like some monsters just wouldn't stay dead. You know the Crimson Heads in Resident Evil, which just keep coming back to life unless you burn them. There were enemies like that, which made it really frustrating. I remember as a kid, like, so I ended up. I think Silent Hill 4, like, kind of feel like I didn't even complete that one, um, but yeah, Silent Hill 1, 2, and 3 were just all incredible games. Like each one has like moments that are burned onto my mind, which there aren't many games like that create those kind of core memories that are just these memorable sort of moments and events in gaming history. Which is why, like, I'm so scared of a team, frankly, like Bloober doing Silent Hill, because the expectations are going to be so high. They're going to be so wild for like the people who played the original when it first came out, and frankly since, because in a lot of ways, it still holds up. Um, I don't know if Bloober can deliver. Honestly, I feel like that's like a lot. And this isn't like an attack on Bloober. This is um just sort of acknowledging the expectations that are going to be there. The expectations for a new Silent Hill after this long are going to be so massive, especially after the disappointments of Homecoming, Book of Memories, and Downpour. So I don't know, man. I'd love to get a new Silent Hill, and PT that Hideo Kojima put together was just absolutely incredible. And also, you have to consider that, Rand.
Yeah.
Like PT raised the bar for the expectations of what Silent Hill can be, and Bloober and whoever makes a new Silent Hill will have to deliver on that expectation too. And I want to believe they can do it. I really do. But at the same time, I kind of like just think the expectations is going to be so high. I would trust Kojima to do it with a big budget, but I don't know if I want anyone else to touch that franchise.
Well, Kojima's not. But this is the thing. I would love for Silent Hill to come back. I love the franchise. And I think Bloober team could do right by it, especially if they have some good combat in it. You can definitely tell the medium has some of that Silent Hill influence on his sleeve. So I definitely would be interested in playing it. If there's two Silent Hills, then that's pretty interesting. But like as we've seen with recent Silent Hill, like Downpour and Homecoming, a lot of the games aren't very good. Like those two weren't good. And there was also I saw Miles talking about the official Silent Hill account definitely follows a lot of Xbox people. Phil Spencer, Major Nelson, right?
Yep.
I don't know if that means anything, but there's this rumor floating around that Bloober team might be doing it. So I don't know. It could be pretty interesting. But let's talk about the big Xbox news for the week. Couple news items here. I want to get Jez's thoughts on this because I haven't even spoken to him about this before. The big news was Xbox FPS Boost for the Series S and X consoles, where essentially Microsoft is going in behind the scenes without the work from any developers, and they're taking some older games and they're bumping them from 30 to 60 frames or from 30 to 120 frames. And you can play it right now. You don't need to wait for an update. All you gotta really do is like restart your console if you don't see it. Current games that use it are New Super Lucky's Tale, which runs at 120 frames per second, Far Cry 4, which is a game from 2016, Sniper Elite 4, which is a game from 2017, UFC 4, which came out last year, and I think I'm missing one. Oh, Watch Dogs 2, which came out in 2016. So, I'll give my thoughts after you, Jez. What are your feelings and thoughts about the Xbox FPS Boost?
Well, it's cool that Microsoft is still sort of pushing that backwards compatibility sort of drum. It's a strong differentiator for the platform, and also it's sort of just kind of a service to gaming to preserve these classic games, but also up level them in some ways because of the cloud and all the Xbox server blades they've got now. Any game that's sort of made backwards compatible will exist forever as long as Azure exists. So even as like Xbox Series X upgrades, and maybe one day they leave the Xbox One architecture behind completely, you'll at least be able to stream them from Microsoft servers because they're not going to just dump those server blades one day, especially if they move to like completely different architecture or whatever. But so it's cool that they do that, but I'm not hugely impressed with the initial lineup, which is kind of like, I don't know, it's kind of like we're getting this for free, so you can't really complain about it. But where's Fallout, man?
That was one of the questions I had was like, hey, like here, so I love this initiative, right? Even though, like I say all the time, I'm not the biggest backwards compatibility user. Like I didn't use it at all for the 360, but here we are, Xbox One, Xbox Series X, especially the start of the gen. It's like, they're very similar generations, right? I like Microsoft's focus on back compat because there's definitely some people out there that will be like, enough with the back compat and the old games, Microsoft. We want bangers. You want games, and it's just like I understand that sentiment too because trust me, like I was saying that back in 2017 when Microsoft, my buddy James Shields can attest to this, when Microsoft was announcing more controllers than they were announcing games. Yeah, that pissed me off to a certain extent. I was like, stop announcing these controllers. Start announcing some new games to play with these new controllers. You know what I mean? But, of course, I even knew back then, different divisions all have different priorities. The backwards compatibility team has nothing to do with Xbox Game Studios. They all have their own directives and things they have to do or want to do. So, with the backwards compatibility team wanting to increase the frame rate because they have a powerful system that can do it, which is great. It doesn't impact, what Matt Booty and Obsidian and Ninja Theory and 343 are all doing, making all these games for people and all that stuff. It's like you can have both, and it's basically people arguing in bad faith. It's always a way to downplay something that Xbox does great by bringing up an aspect where Xbox, is currently lacking. It's like these people don't want to give any praise whatsoever, or it's some sort of praise, but with a caveat, like, oh, it's just old games. Where are the new ones, right? It's like so. Like with you, I love the fact that they're doing this because in my mind, I'm like, okay, one with the original back compat, I never thought we'd get as many games as we did, right? Like, we got something like 500 Xbox 360 games. I thought Microsoft was just going to do a few batches of it, and because, in my mind, a lot of people wouldn't use it, they wouldn't really support it a lot. So I didn't think we were going to get many 360 and OG Xbox games back compat. But then we got a lot. So I was like, so with this announcement, and I agree with you 100%, the initial games that they're launching with isn't exactly, what's the word I want to use? Exciting. They're older games. Like, it would definitely be, I feel like Microsoft in this announcement was just missing one kind of exciting title.
Banger.
Right? A newer game that needed a boost. Like, imagine if this happened and, okay, it's Watch Dogs 2, it's Far Cry 4, but it's Red Dead Redemption 2 at 60. Right? That would have made people like stand up and notice about the platform feature.
And Dark Souls 3 is one people
or
often
like
bring
something
up.
like that. Like just like, okay, this is a game that is really hugely popular. People talk about it all the time, and sure, while the other ones aren't really great or aren't really that popular anymore, like this shows you the potential of all of its stuff. So like so combined with the knowledge that Microsoft really goes the extra mile with back compat, I expect Microsoft to do this with a lot of games. Now,
sorry, go on.
Well, I was going to say, as Ruthhawk says in chat, Rockstar probably wouldn't allow it. That's the problem. And that's something Colt Eastwood got into his interview with Jason Ronald, where it definitely does seem like Xbox needs the permission from developers before they do this. So
It's their code, man. It's their code.
Well, it's their code, and some, like Jason Ronald said in Colt's interview, some developers are like, no, we have plans with the franchise, which means if you're Rockstar and you're planning on reselling Red Dead Redemption 2 with 60 frames, you're not going to want Xbox to give a 60 frames update for free, right? So there is some of that where Microsoft doesn't want to rock the boat with their partners, right?
Yes. I don't know where I read this or if it's just a rumor or something, but apparently Dragon Age Inquisition is
Major Nelson said that in his podcast with Jason Ronald.
Okay.
But then he said in the comments that while it was supposed to be there, they removed it for whatever reason like 2 days before. So yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition was supposed to be among those included with it. So it's a cool feature, 100%. And I do see some people complaining about the resolution of like Watch Dogs 2, right? Where it's like it runs at 60 frames now, but it still runs at 900p, right? Where
Yeah. That's the downside. It's like Dragon Age Inquisition runs at 720p. I think it looks blurry as hell. I don't know if my eyes are just so used to 1080p now. But Dragon Age Inquisition is one game that really deserves some kind of treatment. Like I have no idea why EA didn't release like I would pay like if I wanted to be like dirty with it and just charge like I don't know $10 for a upgrade patch or whatever. Do it, I'll buy it because I would love to see Dragon Age Inquisition running at a crisper resolution with like 60 frames per second because it could, but the version we've got is the OG Xbox One version, which let's face it is rough. So alas, it doesn't seem like how this FPS stuff works. It doesn't seem like it works for resolution or whatever for whatever reason. Do you think maybe did Colt and Jason talk about that? Resolution
Colt
boost?
asked about that, and it's just like they have people running through all these games, seeing if there's any problems and stuff. Seems like it's a pretty big task, because they got to play through a lot of stuff.
I guess resolution potentially more complicated because it's more on the GPU and like the CPU upgrade is so vast that like I don't know. This is the part of the podcast where I say I'm not technical enough to comment on this sort of stuff.
So you're not technical to comment on the whole RDNA 2 1.1 1.5 stuff you saw floating around this week?
Man, I saw all that stuff on Twitter and I was just like, what are they all talking about? What is that? What is all that stuff about RDNA 1.2?
So well,
we even want to get into it. Like,
sure,
you're saying multiple times there.
We can talk about it, but like, I don't know the specifics. I guess I'll give the generalities. Obviously, there's people. When people were talking about the console specs before they were revealed by PlayStation or Xbox, a lot of the PlayStation insiders, and I say that with quote on insiders' part because a lot of them were wrong on pretty much everything. And a lot of them are still tweeting to this day about, Bethesda exclusives will still be on PS5 100%. And it's just like, oh man, you're going to be so wrong. But, we'll talk about that later. But a lot of them were like, oh, not only is PS5 RDNA 2, but it has features of PS5, RDNA 3, right? And people were like, oh, what a joke. And then it came out like, oh, Xbox made that press release where they're like, Series X and S are the only two systems that have full RDNA 2. And then a lot of PlayStation guys were like, oh, PS5 is RDNA 3. And then I guess the die shot came out of the SoC or something. And people were able to see it and be like, yeah, this is not RDNA. Like, it doesn't have Infinity Cache, which was a lot of what a lot of the PlayStation guys said. And it looks like the bus was taken from 256 to 128. I don't really know, but it basically, people were saying that it was basically RDNA 1.5 now or something, and they were running with it when all the PlayStation insiders said RDNA 3 and how it's over because the PS5 is a better machine and all that stuff. So I guess maybe it's just the reality has come to slap people in the face. I don't know. We're not very technical minded people here. So like, I'm just kind of giving the overview of what I at least know about it, but I couldn't tell you the differences between 2 and 3 or what any of this stuff does anyways. So that's just kind of what I was seeing going around on Twitter. Some of it was funny. Tim Dog was going nuts about it, right?
Yeah, I saw Tim Dog tweeting like a million times about it, but I was under the impression that RDNA 3 doesn't even exist.
Of course it doesn't exist.
Okay, so... Okay.
It doesn't exist, but yet it was in the PS5. Because there's some custom stuff that Sony did. And I don't know, whatever. Like, it's just... the roosters, your chickens have come home to roost, right? And people were... Like, I think the thing what people like about us or at least me when I do my videos, is that I'm normally right about the stuff I predict. When I mention things about happening in the future, I normally get it right. Now, obviously, I don't have a 100% track record because I said Splinter Cell was coming back in 2016 and 2017 and never did, right? You can't always get everything right. But I have a pretty good track record with the last stuff. I'm clued in on a lot of things. So when I say stuff, it's usually with an inkling of I know some things, and the people that tell me stuff usually know what they're talking about. But some other of these guys, just verbal diarrhea just keeps on coming out of their mouths, and they're always wrong about things. And it's just like people stop listening to those people, but they don't. It's just, you know what I mean, Jez? Like, your track record counts.
Yeah,
your track record counts.
Yeah.
So, and I think people realize that after amount of time. Like, you can watch my videos, and it's just like, hey, my video this past on Sunday where I said, hey, Jason Ronald and Major Nelson are teasing some huge platform update. And I said, on Wednesday, they're going to announce, I didn't say FPS Boost, but on Wednesday, they're going to announce the double the frame rate. And they did. And I think when you make, in your videos, when you say, hey, Microsoft's going to have an event and it's going to be this date when you're like a month away and it ends up being that date, or when you predict Microsoft is going to reveal the Xbox, Series X at the Game Awards, when you string those things along, when people remember, that what you say, which is why I don't definitively say things unless I know for sure about stuff. But either way, what you say matters, and how people trust you, and people definitely trust me and you. People definitely trust like Dealer and Colt, and it's just, that's just, I pride myself on that, right? And you pride yourself on that when you report on Windows Central. Like, sometimes we banter back and forth on here and we talk about unconfirmed things that we may have heard, but you always say, if I write that stuff on Windows Central, then you definitely like, right? What do you always say? Like, we'll joke about here and talk about things we heard, but you would be like 100% if you put it on Windows Central, because then you've heard it from multiple people, right? Or you have documents to prove it.
It's like I won't publish something on Windows Central unless it's a source with 100% track record, or I've got physical evidence like a document or a photograph that isn't an obvious fake. So it's fun on the podcast to be a bit looser and talk about the rumors and like the possibilities and stuff. But when you put that shit in writing, it's different, man. Like, because it's there forever, It's like,
and Jez says he couldn't. And Jez was, because earlier before the show, Jez was saying he couldn't get away with saying, like, YouTubers can get away with anything, is what you were saying, basically. Like, make up any claims about anything. It's
bloody true. If I put out some of the stuff half of these YouTubers put out, man, it'd be the end of my career.
Yeah, that's definitely true.
I don't know why.
I don't know why either.
Held to a different standard. Just held to a different standard. I suppose part of it is because people forgive YouTubers, I guess, because Google's algorithm forces you to clickbait in some ways. Like, it's different on a website. Like, I don't have to clickbait to get eyeballs on my content. And if everybody on YouTube is clickbaiting and Google rewards that with algorithmic authority, then what can you do? It's Google's fault. They created the monster.
Also, you're a journalist. You're a journalist, and there's some integrity in that. Or like, I'm not a journalist. I'm just a YouTuber. Like, I don't claim to be a journalist. You know what I mean?
I don't claim to be a journalist either. I'm not trained. I don't have a journalism degree. I'm not part of a journalism guild or whatever.
A journalism guild?
Those are things, apparently. Like, I was literally a hobby blogger. I was a hobby blogger, man. And someone offered me a job. I'm not going to say no. I'm on minimum wage, working in a high school, doing IT for some horrible network, and I don't know what I'm doing. I literally blagged my way into this job as a network architect. And the only networking knowledge I had was doing my router at home. I was literally thrown in at the deep end, like, what the hell do I do now? I got the job, don't know what I'm doing. Awesome. Which is kind of how I ended up with this job too. So learn as you go, man. But
yeah, I mean, I never thought, when I started my YouTube channel, Tim Dog was always pushing me to start it. Like, and I never thought when I started it that, I'd have 76,000 subscribers.
You're rocking it, man.
Getting like, like thousands upon thousands of views per video, and, having as many people that watch the Xbox 2 podcast as, we have. Like, I never dreamed of that. Like, that was just,
Dude,
did it.
Can I just ask you, like,
What?
How did it feel when you got the keys to your first Lamborghini?
How did it feel?
How did it feel when those doors swung up, man? How did it feel?
Yeah, I would. If one day I'm fortunate enough to get a Lamborghini, I'll let you know then, Jez. We'd have a super chat from Mahler X, who says Jeff Grubb said in his podcast that Microsoft may hold a Bethesda event after they seal the deal, and how many titles will be exclusive. You guys heard anything? Now, this is interesting because we talked about this before the show, and you wrote an article about the whole Bethesda exclusivity thing on Windows Central. You want to go a little bit in the article, and then we'll answer the super chat?
Yeah, sure. I mean, to be honest, the article wasn't... It's something that I had on my list of things to do for a while, and it wasn't really anything that we hadn't said on the podcast. Like, it's just basically going through the different scenarios that people expect. Like, will everything go multi-plat? Will everything go exclusive? Or will it be sort of like, what they said, a case-by-case basis? And, and it's sort of like just going into the ins and outs and why Microsoft... There's a lot of talking points about it from people who want it to not be true, and they say Microsoft needs to make their money back, and Microsoft needs PlayStation's install base, and it's just debunking some of that stuff. But it's that's the big question mark hanging over Xbox right now, and it's a question they can't legally answer because they don't own the company as of yet. It has to go through regulatory approval in the European Union, and I guess it's already gone through in the United States because we're not really hearing about that much. But maybe it's like just the EU's kind of like they just want to, they want to be involved in some way. They want to feel useful, I guess. So
yeah, we never know. I mean, it could have already been like it could have already been approved in the U.S. and Japan, and the last holdout's the EU, right? We just don't know.
Yeah, we don't know, but the expectation is, and this is what Jeff Grubb said in his podcast, and what we've said before on this show, or you said anyway, that the expectation is, and I think Microsoft somewhere said this in their investor reports, that they expect the deal to go through by sort of March.
Well, no. Satya said that they expected the deal go through sometime by the end of second half of this fiscal year, which ends in June, right? So it was supposed to close within that time frame. Now, I had heard last year that they were aiming to have the deal done by February, which is why I predicted it in my video. I said February, but no later than March, right? Now, we got 1 week left in February. Is it possible that the Bethesda deal closes next week? Maybe, but it's not looking very good. I think Jeff Grubb expects the deal to close next month, and that started looking like a possibility. So he basically said in his podcast that once the deal closes, he thinks, potentially, and who knows, Jeff Grubb knows a lot of stuff. Jeff Grubb is one of those people where he says something, Rand, myself, I pay attention. He was right a lot with a lot of things during his Summer Games mess. He definitely seems to have many contacts. So Jeff Grubb says something, my ears tend to perk up and I listen to it. Even though he doesn't follow me on Twitter, but whatever.
He has very majestic hair too, Mr. Grubb.
Yeah. So he basically was saying that he thinks once the Bethesda deal closes that there'll be some sort of event or show, but he doesn't know the size, whether it be like a Nintendo Direct size or what it will be. And we've been saying for a while that both of us felt that once the Bethesda deal closed, that there would be a round of interviews. That Phil would maybe go talk to IGN or what have you. And in my mind, I even pictured maybe like Phil sitting down with Todd Howard to talk about their plans for Bethesda, because I said that at some point you're going to have to address the exclusivity of these games. And if you go do interviews, that is the first question anybody's going to ask you. Hey, how you doing, Phil? Hey, how you doing, Todd? So anyways, Elder Scrolls 6 Starfield, are they coming to PlayStation or not? Because the games media, still to this day, is very much And I see it all the time when I listen to certain people, when I watch certain people's podcasts. There's still this expectation that the Bethesda games are going to be on PlayStation. And I think a lot of current media definitely favor PlayStation, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. And I think that media thinks that Microsoft, for whatever reason, can't put those games exclusive to Xbox. Like, it would just lose them so much money. So when Phil and these people would go on these media websites and ask questions from basically PlayStation fans, they're going to want to know, hey, where can I play the next Wolfenstein? Where can I play Starfield? It's coming to PlayStation, right? And the thing is, I think they probably want that already to be answered before they do any of these things. So if the deal closed and Xbox was to do some sort of event, I think during that event you would get like the answer. Like if they showed off a new Starfield trailer, for example, and they just basically said, launching on Xbox and PC, exclusive, right? Mm-hmm. Or like if they show like maybe the first reveal of Wolfenstein 3, or they could even do, they said at the July Game Showcase, they said, hey, everything in this show is on Game Pass. And they could easily do the same thing with Bethesda. It's like anything you see here is exclusive to Xbox and PC. Like the question's already answered at that point. And then you could go on, do interviews, and you wouldn't necessarily have to, ask the same question over and over again or answer it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, I would not be surprised if there is some sort of event, whether it's, I guess what is an event, right? I mean, you had the July Game Showcase and you had the May Game Showcase, right? And they both were technically events, but like one definitely was more involved than the other. One was just a string of trailers for indie titles, right? And the other was more of a well-produced show with moving graphics and Phil Spencer speaking and different team members from different studios talking. So definitely one was more involved and heavy than the other. I would imagine, like, what would you imagine the Bethesda one to be like? Would you imagine it more like a July Game Showcase, or more like, what we saw with like the April or May one? Like, if you had to picture your head and think about it, right?
If Jeff Grubb actually knows there's a show coming, like actually has that information, you have to assume that maybe they've already filmed parts of it or recorded parts of it. Maybe they've already recorded gameplay and, it's leaked through marketing source or something along those kind of lines. To that end, like, maybe it will be an actual gameplay showcase. Maybe they show Starfield actually running and be like, yeah, it's coming later this year, exclusive to Xbox or whatever. Xbox and PC, Windows 10, PC, obviously. And so in that vein, maybe, because I feel like if it was like a smaller event, like a podcast or something, I don't think it'd leak. Possibly they're going to do something less formal about it. So, and also I agree with you that you'd want to get in and answer those questions before you do the round of interviews, especially when it comes to like the business side of things, because increasingly like Phil appears in like business oriented news outlets and stuff, and because Microsoft is increasingly pushing gaming as part of their message to investors. So to that end, you want to really sort of present your case for why these games are not coming to other platforms, and then sort of move on to the reasoning in the interviews, rather than just have to repeat yourself 50,000 times. Yes, they're exclusive, So I agree with your reasoning there. That seems to make sense. Rand, it's almost as if you have like some kind of marketing qualification or something.
I don't have any marketing qualifications. I'm just thinking logically. And what, like when I read your article, which was fantastic, by the way, you presented like, here's the thing, why they would all be exclusive, right? And it's interesting because like I just watched all 7 episodes of WandaVision, and WandaVision is driving a lot of subscribers to Disney Plus. And if WandaVision was also on Netflix and Hulu, even though maybe Disney would make more money from putting it on more places, they wouldn't be driving as many subscribers to their own ecosystem, right? And that's
Yeah.
kind of what you were saying in your article, being like, well, you make them all exclusive, you're definitely going to have people coming to you and
You
subscribing
don't
to
want
you and
to
buying from you.
support your competitors.
Right. And it's like PlayStation already is trying to pull games that they don't even own away from you, like Final Fantasy VII Remake. Doesn't seem like it's coming to Xbox. Final Fantasy 16. I've heard rumors that it's a lifetime exclusive to PS5. Project Athia, 2-year exclusive, like Deathloop. Like Sony's out here pulling games from you, and they don't even own them. It's like, you mean to tell me that like you're just going to keep the status quo? And then of course you made the case that like, which I certainly agree with, because we've talked about like, hey, something like Wolfenstein might be multi-plat just because of the story, and they don't want to seem like the bad guys, being like, well, you pulled off the last of a trilogy, blah 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 blah. And then of course the multi-platform thing. But there's always the other angle that I didn't really consider too much until I talked to somebody in the know, who basically said along the lines of, you have to look at it from the shareholder's executive position, because we look at it from a different way. We look at it from the gaming perspective. Like, I want to get more people into Game Pass and all that stuff, right? We understand that, but like essentially, he was saying that the sentiment is basically along the lines of, hey, if you go in your fill and you convince the executives and the major shareholders that you need to invest in Xbox because you need exclusive content, because Phil always talks about content, community, and cloud and how they're drivers of your ecosystem. So you get the shareholders and you get the Amy Hood and Satya be like, here's the money, go get this, only to then just put what you just got as multi-platforms games instead of the exclusivity, which is how you sold it to the board and the shareholders in the first place. Yeah. Right? So you might have to look at it from that angle, where if Phil had to go to shareholders and the board to get that money, and he basically said, we need it for exclusive content, then he wouldn't just then go and be like, you know what, I'm going to make this stuff multi-platform.
Yeah.
So that's an angle you also have to consider, that stuff. So I'll make a prediction right here, right now, okay? I'll make a prediction right here, right now. Right here, right now. Starfield will be 100% exclusive. I'm pretty confident about that. I'm not 99% sure, 100% sure, but I am pretty confident that when Starfield gets announced, that re-announced or re-debuted or whatever you want to talk about it at this show later on, that game will only be launching on Xbox and PC this fall. I am less sure about Wolfenstein 3. I still think there's a slim chance it's multi-platform. But yeah, I feel in my bones Starfield is going to be an exclusive. So
yeah, that Starfield being exclusive goes back to what you said like years ago, that Game Pass really needed a big name with big marketing behind it into Game Pass day one. Starfield is that game. Do you remember when we used to say that like they should go all out and get Cyberpunk in there? Thank God they didn't. but if it was like a game that won't be controversial, Starfield would be that game, wouldn't it? Potentially.
Yeah. And I know people already.
Do you remember?
People are already taking my prediction and being like, "I'm gonna hold you to that, Rand." Sure, go ahead, hold me to it. Like, it's my prediction, 100%.
Do you remember when?
If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, but you never know.
I don't think you'd be wrong about that personally. But do you remember when Skyrim came out? Actually, Fallout 4 as well. There were huge marketing campaigns for that game. I remember seeing like Skyrim billboards around town. Like, even in my tiny, shitty town in England, there were like huge billboards for that game. There was a massive marketing push. And that's like that. Starfield and Halo Infinite launching within the sort of same time frame. Not only do you capture potentially two different demographics, but you also sort of capture, I mean, presuming Starfield is an RPG, that's because it's probably going to be an RPG. you capture two different demographics with two massive games from popular brands like Bethesda and Halo as a brand. From the makers of Skyrim and Fallout 4. This this game that everyone's talking about now. So I think that'd be a big win, a big win, and I think that's probably what's going to happen.
I gotta address this one thing in chat. Sam L says Rand got no sources. What happened to free gold? Now, if you actually pay attention to my videos and what I actually say, because there is a problem with this. People read the headlines, or they don't watch they don't watch the whole thing, right? And they don't read the whole article, as Judge would say, on Windows Central. What did I say in my videos about free gold? I said that by the time Halo Infinite comes out, the free-to-play would be free. Free-to-play games would be free on Xbox. And what happened? Free-to-play will be free by the time Halo Infinite comes out on Xbox. Imagine that. Now, in those videos, I also said I do think Xbox Live Gold will go free, but I always said it is years away. I never said it was going to be 2020 or 2021 or even 2022. I said I think Xbox Live Gold goes away in the years to come when Game Pass and Game Pass Ultimate hits an internal figure that Microsoft wants. But I always said free-to-play would be gone before Halo Infinite releases. And I'm 100% right on that. Trust me, I remember what I say in my videos.
This goes back to what you said earlier about people making shit up in bad faith to obscure an argument. But people do that about me and you. I've seen people say, Jez and Rand said Xbox Live Gold would go free.
Mm-hmm.
And, and then it didn't. And it's kind of like, I never put a timeline on that. And you said years away. And I think we both agree that it's based on Game Pass hitting a specific figure. I know for a fact, and I know this for a fact with sources, that Microsoft isn't a fan of Xbox Live Gold. They see it as archaic, but they also see it as a massive pool of cash flow, which is factored into their budgets. You can't just rip that off like a Band-Aid. There has to be a plan in place, and that plan is Game Pass. The plan is for Game Pass to hit a certain number of subscribers in new markets to offset the potential losses from that. So, you just sort of have to sort of listen to what's being said.
Yeah, and I get it. Sometimes my titles can be a little clickbaity and a little incendiary, right? Like, if you read the title, I'm sure you probably think, oh, Rand's saying this, but like, you always got to listen to what I say. I say things for a reason. I never thought for a second that Xbox Live Gold would go free in 2020 or 2021, but I did say free to play would be gone, because I had heard that like behind the scenes. Like, this was getting rid of free to play is a thing that's been going on for a while, or at least been worked on for a bit. And like, hey, if you also like, Jeff Grubb said the same thing. Like, even Brad Sam said the same thing. Like, Xbox Live Gold going away, and Jeff Grubb's been right about a lot of stuff. Is he suddenly wrong about Xbox Live Gold, or is just timetables have shifted? I do like, look, if you want to come back in 10 years and Xbox Live Gold we're still paying for it, then I'll be like, I was wrong on that. But I honestly do believe it in a few years it will be gone. Now, that may not be like what you want to hear, but like, that is kind of what I feel is going to happen. And free-to-play games will be free by the time Halo Infinite comes out. I mean, it's only made the most logical sense. Microsoft taking their biggest franchise, having free-to-play multiplayer, but then having it locked behind the stupid paywall made no sense. Like, to anybody with any sort of logical thinking would come to the realization that Microsoft was going to remove that before the launch of Halo. It would have been removed before Halo got delayed, but it got delayed, and then they had another year. So, and honestly, I was even hearing that they knew Halo was going to get delayed before the July Game Showcase. So, anyways. Oh, and now he laughs. 10-year prediction. Okay. Anyways, enough of that. Back to the FPS boost. So, is there any titles that that you want to see get FPS boost, like personally?
Uh, I don't know. You already mentioned Red Dead, which would be a good one to have. Especially Red Dead 2, because honestly, I still have a bunch of stuff I want to do in that game. Um, Also, Dragon Age Inquisition, we already mentioned that. There aren't honestly many games that I would probably go back and revisit at this point. I'm kind of like in a I really want new stuff now mood. I don't know. I don't know. I think I'm I don't know off the top of my head. What do you think? What do you think? Are there any beyond the obvious
I
that
mean,
really have
there's a lot
frame
of
rate
like
issue?
30 frames per second games, just like from Microsoft's own first party, which is an interesting like thing here. Like, out of all these announcements, you couldn't have chosen anything that Microsoft did themselves. You know what I mean? Like Gears
Mm.
Ultimate, 30 frames. Could it be 60? Quantum Break, 30 frames. Could it have been 60? Alan Wake on the 360, 30 to 60. Rise Son of Rome, 30 frames. Like, could you have gotten that to 60? Recore, Sunset Overdrive, although obviously PlayStation owns that at that point. But, like, there are some games from this generation that Microsoft published that they, could essentially move from 30 to 60 and make the experience better.
Yeah.
And even some 360 games like, the Dead Space series, Dark Souls, right? Would
Did they
definitely
do backwards
benefit.
compatible games as well?
Um, I think they will do it to some Xbox 360 games. Um,
I don't see why not at this point. Maybe they will do like Red Dead 1 as well. I don't know.
yeah.
That'd be interesting.
Not Jack says Dishonored 2 would be a huge FPS boost. It is nasty input lag and performance issues even on the Series X. Dishonored 2 is great. But yeah, running at 60 frames would be a lot better. So, yeah, I'm huge fan of what they're doing with Back and Pat. FPS boost is awesome. Just want like more recent games or bigger titles. And I think, a year from now, if they add a whole bunch of titles, then nobody's going to remember that they launched with Super Lucky's Tale and Watch Dogs 2, right? People will just totally forget about it. Um, and then of course there's the new wireless headset. Now you're the headset aficionado, so tell me your thoughts on this.
I was mind blown when I saw the price on this headset because, simply put, there are no headsets on the market that come in at $99 or $99.99, whatever, that have this feature set. So, like, I'm talking about wireless, Xbox wireless, Bluetooth. Every Bluetooth headset has been at least $150. So, to my knowledge, anyway, I think there's one that is $100, but he's wired, and that's from SteelSeries. But every Xbox wireless headset with Bluetooth, I am pretty damn sure, is at least like $150 or like $120. I think the cheapest one is the Turtle Beach Stealth 700 Gen 2. I think that's like $120 or something, or at least it was at launch. Might come down in price now. I do know my headset. But then I saw like all these other features, like it's got like smart mute. It like mutes you when it detects you're not speaking, so you can't like hear people mouth breathing and stuff like that. And it's got like the dials, and it's got like the metal interior headband and a bunch of other stuff. And it's and I was like, man, this is at least a $200 headset, because judging on previous Microsoft products like the Surface headphones, for example, and the Surface earbuds, they were massively overpriced. So I was kind of like in the mindset that Microsoft doesn't know how to make a headset, and because of that, they overpriced them. Because I don't think for a second the Surface headphones were worth what they were asking them. In fact, I kind of feel like that about Surface in general lately. I think whoever's pricing Surface devices is just you know crazy at this point. But I expected them to be $200, and then when I saw that $99 price tag, I was like, "What the hell? What is that?" They have undercut all of their OEMs who make like headsets with a headset that has more features for less money. Now, obviously, the thing that you really want to care about when it comes to a headset is the audio, and we have no idea what they sound like right now. So it could be the case that It looks great on paper, sounds terrible in practice, and maybe the microphone's terrible too. But they said best in class audio. So, you can't say best in class audio unless you actually have best in class audio.
But what is
So,
best in class? Does that mean best in class for $100 headphone audio?
yeah,
Because there's
I
obviously
think that's
like
what
not
they
going to compare
mean.
themselves to like Astro 850s, which is like $350, which is what I use. You know what I mean?
Yeah, like, honestly, I don't even think the Astro 50s is like as the best sound in the market right now. But I digress. It's like if you're saying you got best in class audio, let's assume that means best for $100 headset. You are also talking about the audio of like cheaper headsets that do sound really great, like the HyperX. HyperX CloudX headset is like what I generally recommend to people who want a great sounding headset but don't care about any of the frills. HyperX CloudX or the Cloud 2. HyperX is like cheaper wide headsets sound gorgeous. I really love the sound on those headsets. But like when it comes to the wireless headsets that are $100, most of them don't sound that good. Like the Turtle Beach Stealth 600 comes to mind, and like some of the Steel Series, I can't remember which number it is, but there's a $100 wireless Steel Series headset which doesn't sound that great either. So like what a lot of companies do in this price bracket when they're making a wireless headset, they put the features in, and then they sort of save on the audio quality and stuff like that. So if Microsoft can nail good audio with, they've also got the mic monitoring in there, which is something I love. They have like the mic monitoring, the Bluetooth mixing, the Xbox wireless with decent battery life, a good microphone, and good audio. I honestly think this could be the best Xbox headset ever made. And another problem with that is it sort of makes all their partners like Razer and Turtle Beach and all these others, it makes them look bad because they've been selling like $100 headsets that like kind of skimp on some of these features at that price point. So the headset market's really vibrant right now, like because everyone's stuck at home. People want headsets for working from home, they want headsets for gaming, they want headsets for like competitive multiplayer because you got the surround sound stuff going on, makes you more tactically aware potentially in some games. Call of Duty is very good with a headset, for example. But yeah, I was stunned, man, at that price.
Yeah,
I just gotta hear him now.
the price is what caught my eye. It was like $99. I'm like, that's interesting. And I was a little nervous about it because their last headset, the stereo headset for the Xbox One, by all accounts was absolutely horrible. A horrible headset.
I never actually used that one, but I heard the same.
But like, man, it looks super cool. The like how you like actually turn the knob to like increase the volume is interesting. So it's like very stylish. That really caught my attention. Ermi wants me to talk about Dolby Atmos, and it supports Dolby Atmos, but apparently this one doesn't come with a code for Dolby Atmos. Some people are saying this in chat, like it doesn't come with a code, so you would have to pay for it. I own Dolby Atmos. Like I bought the $15, like license for it for my Series X or whatever, so I wouldn't have a problem with that. Is that a way for Microsoft to keep the cost down? Probably, so they don't have to include the code for it. Dolby Atmos is amazing, by the way. One of the other features I really thought was interesting was how you can pair it to your Xbox, but then also at the same time pair it to Bluetooth like your phone, and essentially be in a Discord call. Because remember,
that is literally what I'm doing right now. And usually to get those kind of features, you have to pay more. Like I'm using Lucid Sound LS50X right now, which is my personal favorite headset for Xbox of all time. Like, and it costs $250 recommended retail price, and you can get it for $200 or even less. I think now, like they do come down in price over time, especially if they've been like oversupplied and stuff like that. But usually to get Bluetooth mixing RAND, you have to pay a premium, and Microsoft's managed to get it down to $100, which is just stunning.
Yeah, that's the price is what's really, because I wasn't able to pre-order one the day they came. Like they were sold out at Amazon, Microsoft Store, but I think the next day they went live at Best Buy, and I was able to snag one. But then with these things, it's like reviews are always going to be important. is the headset worth the $100? Because it does have some cool features, but then you just gotta, you're like, how good is it really for 100? Now, the other question I have, so we know it's launching March 16th, $100. Jez, this would have been a perfect thing to launch with your new consoles. Do you think perhaps the pandemic pushed it to the point where, like, because it's coming out in March, so it only missed the launch of the Series X and S by 5 months. Do you think there was any chance that this was supposed to be planned to launch with the new console when people are like buying a whole bunch of stuff? Or like, okay, here's a Shock Blue controller and the blue and the white one, right? And like, here's a new headset to go with your brand new controller. Like, I know part of me thinks that this was supposed to be planned to launch with the system.
Yeah, it most likely was. It was obviously this has been in the works for quite a long time, and it would make sense to launch it alongside your console. But maybe there was just like some kind of issue that caused them to get pushed back. I mean, it happens. Like the Audi's Penrose headset, which is currently among the most expensive headsets for Xbox out there, like $300. That was delayed for over a year. I think that was delayed. That was significantly delayed, that headset was. And people were like really excited about this Audi's Penrose headset because it had like the magnetic planar drivers or whatever. Siran, that is one worry I have about this headset, right? There was no real specs given. We just got given features. We don't know what the frequency response is, stuff like that. The battery life listing was badly worded and kind of vague. It said 15 hours, but, and then like an asterisk with usage may vary and stuff like that. They have to say that, but I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns about this headset, so I kind of want to obviously reserve judgment for a full review, which I will be doing either with a review unit from Microsoft or from the one that I've pre-ordered, because I pre-ordered it as well. But yeah, if they nail the audio and their claims, I think this could be the best headset ever made. And not only that, for Xbox anyway, the best headset for Xbox. And then it could drive costs down of third-party headsets because Microsoft will have undercut them. So like all those like mad expensive headsets, like the your Astros and your Lucid Sounds and stuff, it could be the case that Microsoft undercuts them, and it's just kind of becomes a case of, well, we have to price our headsets lower now because headsets have really good margins. So yeah, Microsoft undercut their partners.
It's interesting. I'm gonna be really interested in the reviews for this. Like, because even still, like, I have A50s. I haven't plugged the optical port is plugged into the back of the TV, my OLED, so I can use them on the Xbox as well as on the PS5 or the Switch, depending on what's currently playing. And the one thing, this headset does work on PCs, and I don't have a headset for the PCs. Like, even doing the podcast right now, I'm just using a pair of earbuds. And I kind of do want a headset for the PC, or even
Ran, I'm gonna blow your mind right now, buddy.
What?
You can plug the Astros into PC and Xbox simultaneously.
I know, but like my Xbox and my PC are very far apart, and I don't want to constantly have to move the base station and plug everything back in and out.
Just get a big ass cable, man.
No, I'm saying, like, why do that when I can just get this? And who knows? We'll check it out. But
I'm gonna tell you something disappointing now.
What?
Bluetooth just sucks.
Yeah, I know.
Like I'm using like every Bluetooth headset I use, and I always use a Bluetooth headset for this podcast, so I can mix audio from my Xbox to the headset and then have Discord with Bluetooth via my laptop. It just sucks. It always sucks. Like, even when we're talking now, like sometimes you'll go robotic because the Bluetooth signal is easily corrupted by all the other wireless bullshit I've got in my bedroom. So, Bluetooth is like this horrible technology that there's nothing better for some reason. Like, can't someone come up with a technology that's like Bluetooth but just better? Like, do we not have the technology for this? But I don't know. Beggars can't be choosers, I guess. But
yeah.
maybe that's another thing. Maybe the Bluetooth connection on this headset will be inexplicably good. Because that is the holy grail. A headset that can do both, and the Bluetooth isn't a pain to use. But every Bluetooth headset I've ever used has failed on me, intermittently. Like even like the Samsung Galaxy Buds, which you'd think are designed for Galaxy phones, even those get audio corruption sometimes. But I don't know. I can't wait to get my ears on them, and I'll be giving that a big review. I'll probably do like a full-blown, ridiculously detailed 2,000, 3,000 word review with the video for those. Because I am intrigued.
Chinak says, any info on Compulsion and the Coalition, Jez? Any info on both of them?
I have no info on either of them, unfortunately. We can guess, I'm sure that like the Coalition are probably looking at how well received the DLC was. I can't even remember what it was called now.
Hivebusters.
Hivebusters, yeah. I'm sure they're looking at like how well Hivebusters was received. I have no idea what it did in terms of like users or whatever, but it was like very well received by the community at least. I'm probably looking at that and thinking if that can inform like what the future of Gears looks like, and also like I don't know. I have no idea what they're going to be doing.
I mean, I would imagine Coalition's doing Gears 6 if I had to guess. And
yeah, I would
Compulsion is a mystery. All we really know is that it's a third-person game, which was said on the Iron Lords podcast. Shout out to Lord Cognito and King David and Sovereign and Addict that they interviewed Compulsion like last year or the year before, and yeah, their game's third person. So we'll have to wait and see. Probably gets revealed this year, maybe. But either way,
I heard the only thing I've heard about Compulsion's game, and like I have no idea if this is even true, is that it was a puzzle game, but it may well not be.
I mean, I don't know. So. Google Stadia. Did you see this news that Phil Harrison blamed one of the reasons for them basically firing everybody because Xbox bought Bethesda, and that was
man. Some of the stuff I read about that whole Stadia thing was just cringy. Like they were praising the internal studios for their development progress like literally a week before firing everyone. That's like what? That's like the ultimate corporate bullshittery. Google's just has this image of being an awful company to work for lately. Like there's all this other drama with Google firing people for speaking out about their like, personal beliefs or something. I don't really know too much about that. But Google's embroiled in a lot of drama lately when it comes to firing people. And then there was reports that Phil Harrison, famous for nearly destroying Xbox, he said that's a joke, by the way. That was a team effort, but no, but Phil Harrison said something along the lines of, and I am paraphrasing, and also this is just a report, and I don't know how true it is, but he said something along the lines of, we saw how aggressive Microsoft were being with, picking up studios, and we decided that we can't compete with that, basically. Which kind of says to me, like, dude, like, read the room. Like, do you not realize what's going on in the game industry right now? Like, with all the acquisitions going on, left, right, and center, all the investments going on. Like, Saudi Arabia just invested like $3 billion in EA, Activision, and Take-Two Interactive. Like, the amount of money that's being thrown at these studios. And you really thought that Microsoft like wasn't committed after A, working there, and B, seeing all the acquisitions they've been doing. It just boggles my mind how these big tech companies that are literally trillion dollar market value companies, they see a market and just think, oh yeah, we can do that. Kind of reminds me of Amazon with the Fire Phone. Do you remember that?
Yeah,
Amazon make
a
phone.
Mm-hmm.
Like Amazon's Fire Phone, and they're just like, yeah, we can make a phone. We're Amazon, and then it's like, oh, actually, the phone business is kind of hard. Let's not do that anymore. It's good. This is the same thing with Google. It's like, oh, making a games platform is kind of hard. Let's not do that anymore.
Well, I think here's what I think happened. I think Google thought they didn't like one of the reasons they said is like, oh, making games is tough and the costs are infinitely going up. It's like you had already known that before getting in. So, like, I don't want to hear any of that shit. The thing basically is I think Google was never 100% behind Stadia to begin with, even though All the talking heads said they were. Right? Anybody that knows anything about Google would know that they're not in. And I think they thought they could launch the streaming platform first before anybody else and get a lot of traction and be the leader. But as we know, like it's funny to say because it's it's kind of ridiculous when you think about it. But like Xbox and PlayStation were both really afraid of what Google was going to bring to the game industry. Like really, I know Xbox was terrified. They like Google. Remember when Google Stadia announced the platform and all that stuff? Microsoft rushed out a video announcing xCloud. And, like, do you remember that, Jez?
Yeah, I do.
Like they were.
Like, I've heard like the opposite too. That like there was a great deal of skepticism about like the content levels that were coming in. I think like the fear was coming from a place where Microsoft was sort of not, should we call it the Terry Myerson times, when Microsoft wasn't willing to invest the money it needed to really deliver the content that a streaming service would need. But that's changed now. And I think at that point, you kind of... Google just... There isn't enough developers in the world that exist that Google could even sort of jump on that platform and throw money at studios fast enough to even sort of compete with the big boys. And I think like the fact that they weren't even willing to try, you know, and I've heard, Rand, that there are big publishers looking for buyers.
Of course.
They're looking for investment. You know, and I'm talking the big companies.
I've heard the same thing. Like I like that's why I'm fairly confident that at some point in the future, I'm not saying this year, not even saying next year. I don't know when because I'm not privy to that stuff, but I 100% believe Microsoft will buy another publisher at some point. Now, I don't know if it'll be a big publisher like Take-Two or EA or a medium-sized one or a small one, but like after this Bethesda deal goes down, yeah, I have no doubt in my mind that Microsoft will continue to acquire companies and they will continue to acquire publishers. Like, and I think they only care about publishers at this point because you have 15 Xbox game studios that are run like teams. Like you have 15 studios that Matt Booty oversees. He's basically at his limit overseeing those teams. You really can't add any more because people question like, why is Bethesda separate? Why isn't Bethesda under Xbox Game Studios? What's a subsidiary? Like there are some people saying that like because Bethesda's a subsidiary, that means all the games are multi-platform and stuff, and they obviously have no clue about mergers and acquisitions. But like Matt Booty can only oversee so many studios. He's basically at the limit of what he can do, right? But here you have a publisher who basically already oversees itself. So what Microsoft did was bought Bethesda. They don't need to integrate them into studios where Matt Booty would oversee them. They already overlook themselves. They already have everything they need, which is why you haven't seen any layoffs. All that happens is that now Bethesda is going to report to Phil, like Matt Booty reports to Phil. So Matt Booty, in charge of 15 studios, he's at his operational limit. So if Microsoft continues to want to essentially grow more studios, it's essentially you buy a publisher who already knows what they're doing and then would report to Phil. So let's hypothetically have a scenario. I'm not saying it'll be them, but if Microsoft ended up buying SeGA would be a very similar situation to Bethesda. They wouldn't be under Xbox Game Studios because, like I said, Matt Booty at his limit. SeGA already runs itself. All they would do is just like keep it intact, and they just report to Phil. That's how that stuff's going to go. And I think that's why they're talking to many different publishers, because they don't want to add any more essentially underneath Matt. They already want publishers that can run themselves and basically go to Phil and be like, what are we doing? You know what I mean?
Yep, I agree entirely. I think Microsoft's like, they're done looking at like smaller studios, or maybe if like there's like a perfect studio comes along and it fills a specific niche. Like I'm sure Microsoft will buy a studio that had made a trending service game, for example.
Well, it's one thing to buy one studio, but like if you're looking to buy more, like Matt Booty already runs 15 studios, so that's a lot.
Yeah, for sure.
Bethesda is what, another 8 studios. Obviously, some of those have different teams. So yeah, like I said, that's what's gonna happen. We have a super chat from Axel 1324 Gaming says Google doesn't really invest in anything without integrated AdSense. This is why Stadia Studios failed in my opinion. Love the show, guys. Thank you for the support. Basically back to the Google Stadia thing, because I honestly do think, and I know some people disagree with this, but I think Phil buying Bethesda 100% impacted their decision, because it basically removed all of Bethesda's games from Stadia. And Bethesda was one of the earlier supporters of Stadia from the very beginning, right? So now you're removing a whole bunch of content. But more importantly, it showed that Google's competitor, Microsoft, was 100% all in, which is what I've been saying for months. Like, there was always the question, is Microsoft all in? Yeah, it's nice to buy Ninja Theories and the Obsidians and the Playgrounds of the world, but people still felt that Xbox wasn't 100% all in until they bought Bethesda, because that showed commitment and that showed Microsoft being behind Xbox in a way that we've never seen before. And I think that honestly spooked Google. Like, Google looked at it and was like, okay, so they got xCloud and they got Game Pass, which is a better business model, but we don't have that yet. And you're telling me to compete, we need to invest basically $8 billion more into getting studio. Like, I think Google looked at that, ran the numbers, and was like, no, this ain't worth it. We're done. Pull the plug. Like, there are no more reasons. There's no longer waiting for those studios to put something out. They just looked at it from a financial cost opportunity analysis and was just like, no, like, we're not doing that. We're not investing that money. Pull the plug right now.
It's also like Google's completely ridiculous self-imposed restriction on refusing to use anything Microsoft-based. Like, the fact that they were asking developers to port their games to Linux, is like a huge, massive barrier that Microsoft isn't imposing on developers. And also the fact that you can port a PC game to Xbox with, like, and then play. There's this whole established sort of ecosystem for that kind of gaming that Google just can't really tap by being a Linux-based platform. So, they stumbled at every possible block besides the streaming technology, which is actually really great. But the problem is with that is, like, there's only so much extra you can do there until, like, Microsoft has an identical product. Like, personally, I'll say right now that I have had better connections with Stadia than I've had with xCloud. I don't know if that's a result of, like, geolocation. I don't know if that's a result of Stadia being better. There's so many, like, factors and stuff that go into this that you just don't know for sure. But what I do know for sure is that all this technology will improve over time. And then at the point where xCloud is, like, identical or indistinguishable from Stadia from a technical perspective, what have you got left, Stadia? You've got nothing, because Microsoft has all the content. So not only do they have the content, but they have the day one games subscription service. Whereas, like, with Stadia, and this is going to really suck for people who've invested in those games, especially if Google doesn't refund them when they shut the service down. You don't own the games that you buy, and there's always that sort of fear that when Google shuts down that service, boom, all your investment goes with it. And sure, you could say that about Xbox too if you buy digital games, but the difference there is that Microsoft's been in this game for a really long time, and they have also a track record of weathering catastrophe. Like, Microsoft could have pulled the plug on Xbox when the Red Ring of Death happened. They could have pulled the plug on Xbox when Xbox One was announced and it was like a big disaster, and Kinect was a failure, and they could have pulled the plug. Microsoft could have pulled the plug, and it wouldn't have dented their bottom line, because the cloud stuff, and Satya Nadella is certainly someone who is, he came from the cloud division, and one of the best things Phil Spencer has done from a strategic perspective is marrying Xbox to Microsoft's core business in a way that, honestly, not even Windows has tapped from a profitability perspective. because like Windows is this like open platform that people can just make an app for, and Microsoft doesn't see a penny of that. But like on top of that, Phil has built Xbox directly into Azure, and they're expanding their game stack stuff, which is like where developers can pay Microsoft money to build games on, like Fall Guys, for example, which now uses Azure to run. Like it's funny. Fall Guys is running on Azure, which is exclusive to PlayStation. So a Microsoft service is powering Fall Guys on PlayStation right now. That's the pipeline that Xbox has that other companies just don't. And that's the pipeline that will ensure Xbox sticks around for a really long time. Because Microsoft, Phil, has very cleverly married it to Microsoft's core business model, which is cloud. So, you know, it's a cool time to be an Xbox fan. And if anyone's got doubts that Microsoft's in it for the long haul, they're either just like lying to themselves or they ain't been paying attention.
Okay. Yeah.
Woo!
I mean, I 100% agree with you. So, yeah, people just ain't paying attention, right?
Indubitably.
So, with that, we got a couple other topics here left to discuss. What's going on with Final Fantasy 14, Jazz? I saw some Windows Central Gaming articles. One that said it's not coming to Xbox because they just don't have the resources, and another said, thank Phil Spencer for removing obstacles. Now, I guess both can be true, that they just don't have the resources right now, and that Phil removed the... Like, what is going on with Final Fantasy 14, though? Like, seriously.
It's kind of weird. Like, I think some of this was, like, maybe potentially bad translations or something. I don't know. But basically, what they said was they were focused on, and I'm paraphrasing, they were focused on the expansion right now, and that the resources weren't like present to even consider Xbox right now. Final Fantasy's become like this massive machine, and when you're making an MMO, you have to constantly churn out content. So working on a port of a live service game while you're trying to maintain your live service game, that is not a trivial task to make. So when it comes to like not having the resources, I think what they really mean is like, you know, we're running this live service game now. It's less about resources and maybe more about logistics. But then in a second interview, they sort of clarified further and said that like Phil Spencer removed the obstacles, and that I presume refers to the fact that before Square Enix said that the way they update the game wasn't compatible with Microsoft's certification process for updates, because to maintain a live service game is complicated, and one of the things that Square Enix benefits from on PC and PlayStation is they only have to rely on their own internal certification process. Whereas to get a game or an update on Xbox, you have to go through Microsoft's certification process, which historically was laborious and difficult to deal with. And that's something like, you know, one of the things that I used to hear was that like it used to take weeks to get something from Microsoft certification, and then over time they've improved it, and now it's like days or hours, like depending on the situation. But maybe Square Enix obstacle was completely removed, and they got approval to just literally release updates without getting full-blown certification approval. I don't know, but I think that's what they're referring to when it comes to the obstacles, because I do remember that being an issue, the whole update process and whatever. But I do think that I still think Final Fantasy 14 Realm Reborn will eventually come to Xbox someday, but I think it'll happen like during a sort of quieter period for the game. They're not going to try and do that while they're working on a big expansion, because Final Fantasy 14 has become very story based. Like it has these like really deep stories, and it's got all these classes which sort of like have their own storylines and stuff like that, as far as I understand anyway. Whereas like World of Warcraft is potentially simpler, which is funny because that's never gone to console. But I think that's more of an engine issue than anything else. But I don't know. Personally, I think it'll come. When it'll come, I have no idea. we'll just have to wait and see, I guess. Sucks for those who want it and those who are waiting for it, but it's just a case of logistics, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting because Phil talked about that in 2019, and they revealed the expansion and all that stuff. So I don't know if them by them not saying they don't have enough resources, if that's code word for, hey, we need more money. Like, hey, why don't you pay for this
Maybe.
port or whatever? But yeah, so that's Final
I
Fantasy
mean,
14.
Microsoft could definitely like support them in some way, maybe. I don't know, because supporting a MMO is not a simple process, especially if you want it all hooked up with crossplay and stuff, because you have to make sure all the updates line up. And when you're making it for two platforms, which they are right now, it's much more simple to do. So they are adding a huge degree of complexity purely on the basis of adding another platform to it. And you can argue that, yeah, Elder Scrolls Online deals with this and other games deal with it. But because it's a subscription service, the cash flow of the game is perhaps potentially factored differently. I don't know. It's just logistics, I think. I don't think there's anything malicious going on. I don't think Sony's paying to keep the game off the platform. And I don't think Square Enix is just sort of like whatever about it. I think it's literally just a pure case of cold logistics and the complexity. Because you have to remember, this was a game that was in a bad state when it launched. And, they really turned it around.
They salvaged it though.
Yeah, they did.
We had a super chat earlier about this, but it's a topic. There was a reset era thread where somebody said that he thinks, judging from some information, that Obsidian is one of their games working on is Conker. Conker,
Man,
the rare game.
Yeah, we talked about that on the Xbox chat days thing. That would be wild. I don't know if I believe that personally.
I don't believe it. I mean, I know people want Conker to come back. I just don't believe Obsidian's working on a Conker game. I'm sorry. I 100% just don't believe it. And I'd have to be told from other people that no, it's the case. So my immediate, like, when seeing this, like 100% no. Like, but I could be wrong. I know people want Conker to return, and I just Obsidian making a platformer, like, what? Come on.
No, but what if it was like, because writing wise, I think Obsidian could do it, and a lot of people speak about the South Park games, right? Similar kind of humor in some ways. So like writing wise, maybe they could do it. What if it was like a Conker spin-off that wasn't a 3D platformer, but maybe used the South Park engine they built for side-scrolling RPGs or something? And it was like a spin-off just to test the waters. I don't know. Because they've got this whole game engine that revolves around side-scrolling platformers. And they've got a system in place. And potentially they could just like slap some sprites on top of it and slap a new story on it and do it like that. Why not?
I don't know.
I give Conker a little party of little furry rodents chilling with him, and that's my game pitch. Like do it like JRPG side-scrolling 2D Conker comedy game.
I just don't see it. I just don't see it. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I can see Rare making a Banjo game, right?
A what game?
A Banjo game. Like, I can see Rare, like, their third team making a Banjo game. Like, you have the Sea of Thieves team, you have the Everwilds team, and I think there might be a third team, and I can see that third team being essentially a Banjo remake. I just don't think Conker's on that list of like IPs to revive. I could be wrong though. I mean, maybe Obsidian's doing it. I know Obsidian has a bunch of projects they're working on. You got Avowed. You have basically the Outer Worlds 2 DLC, which eventually is going to shift after Avowed into Outer Worlds 2. You have Josh Sawyer's game, but that's supposed to be like a small team of like 10 people working on something. You have Grounded. I mean, that's like 4 projects right there. I just can't see there being another project that is Conker, but I guess we'll see.
Microsoft has to have seen like when they announced Banjo for Smash, people went mental.
They did.
Like, didn't Twitter literally break when they
It did.
announced Banjo
No,
for
they
Smash?
it broke when they announced Steve for Minecraft.
Well, that too. It's kind of like it's absurd, like how much of a factor nostalgia can be when it comes to selling games. And I do feel like Microsoft probably maybe says to its internal teams, if you want to build a game based on one of our classic IPs and you've got a pitch, or prototype even, let us look at it, That's probably like, how Perfect Dark came around and stuff like that. Because there is value in um building a game based on a franchise that people know, because you skip a whole lot of explanation. You skip a lot of marketing books, because you don't have to explain what the game is, the premise. Like, for a fact that Perfect Dark is going to be a stealth game, because even though I've never played it before, it's a classic stealth game. Everyone knows it's a stealth game, and right there, you've, just by calling it Perfect Dark, you've already bypassed a whole pile of marketing. So, like, if they made a Conker game, even though Conker's not like the most famous IP in the world, it's you've already it's already explainable in some ways, because you know what kind of humor it's gonna have, what kind of characters it's gonna have, and that sort of thing. So I do think there's some potentiality that we see. Is that even a word?
Potentiality.
Is that a
If it
word?
isn't, I don't know. If it isn't, it is now.
Potentiality. Okay, potentiality is a word now. I think I just made up a word, but whatever. If there, if I think there is potentiality that we will see more classic IP get used, like Perfect Dark, like Banjo. I just don't know if it's Conker. I just kind of feel like I don't think that's the most popular IP internally. I don't think it's the image that Microsoft wants to portray itself or be attached to. Like, I don't know, Microsoft's really squeamish when it comes to anything that's even vaguely controversial these days. So
I don't know. I
I don't
mean,
know.
they partnered with the Medium, and that has some very controversial aspects to it.
Yeah, but it's controversial in a sort of it's but it's like topical to
I mean,
it's relevant to
I
the
understand
story.
it's not their game, so it's different. But you know, still,
It's still relevant to the story and character development. Like, it's a serious game with serious topics, not necessarily controversial. But I think, like, Conker's humor by today's standards might be considered, you know, the basically only South Park still gets away with that sort of stuff. Well, I
yeah.
don't know. I could be wrong. Like, there could be, like, I don't know. I don't know, but I don't think it's
And
coming back.
everybody wants to let me. Everybody wants the me to let that rumor live. Hey, I'm go right ahead, and like you guys can all believe in the rumor. I won't say anything more about it. I won't make a video about it. Oh, maybe I will make a video about it. Who knows? Like I don't know. I'm just saying, like, personally, I don't think it's true, but I guess we'll have to wait and find out. But anyways, I think that's where we're going to end the show for today. So if you guys have any questions, make sure to put them in chat. Me and Jez will answer them to the best of our ability. We have some few more minutes left, but I want to thank everybody for being here on this Saturday. It was a great show. Love having everybody here. All the support is always amazing. You guys are awesome. But if you do kind of head out, make sure you hit the like button, the subscribe button, notification bell if you haven't already. We appreciate that. Let's take some questions, Jez. What do you think?
Hell yeah.
Adel K wants to know, does anybody know why Minecraft isn't on Game Pass on PC?
Good question. I have no idea. I think,
Um,
like, Minecraft is sort of like it's like what we are talking about earlier, how like Bethesda's going to run itself, Xbox Game Studios runs itself, and to some degree, I believe Mojang runs itself. I think that was like part of the agreements and stuff, that it would be independent in some ways, but I don't. No, I'm not suggesting that they refuse to put it in Game Pass, but what I'm saying is that they might have like a specific business model that involve like that makes Game Pass like not the best fit for the game. For example, we talked about earlier how, and this is just speculation, just to answer the question. Like I have literally no idea, but it's kind of like what we talked about earlier, how Game Pass increases retail sales because it provides marketing for the game. Minecraft doesn't need to be marketed. So maybe the value for Mojang putting Game Pass Minecraft in Game Pass just isn't there. Maybe it sells well enough without it. And maybe the whole business model and cash flow model revolves around it not being in there. So I would think it's just a case of people still buy it the way it is, and they don't really want to change. They don't really feel the need to change anything about that. It's only $20, so
Yeah. Nicholas Dern says hello. Just got here. Love you guys. Okay, bye. Well, we're apologize for you just getting here and us being pretty much done. We usually end around the same time every single week, but welcome, hello, and see you later, I guess. RA89 says Xbox needs to build a team for those rare IPs. Maybe snatch some Nintendo or ex-Nintendo devs if possible. I mean, there was a rumor about like Playtonic doing a Viva Pinata, and you know what? Even though I don't really think that's true, I actually like that rumor. I do like Viva Pinata, and you know, like Playtonic making a Viva Pinata would be cool. You know what I mean? I don't know. Did you like Viva Pinata, Jazz?
I didn't really play it too much. I played it a little bit, but I do think like it'd be cool to have some kind of IP around that sort of franchise. I don't know. It's interesting. Like people often think about like people often bring up the fact that Microsoft doesn't seem to have that much for kids nowadays, but it's also kind of the fact that they own Minecraft. So do they need more to get that young audience mindshare? But also Minecraft isn't exclusive. Maybe they've just accepted that they've lost that audience, I guess. I don't
Yeah.
know. I mean, what could you do? Like every little kid wants a Switch. They don't really care about the other stuff. I'm talking about little kids. Maybe like slightly older kids. They want like their Call of Duties and stuff like that. You know, even though it's supposedly an 18 rated game, but um, little kids want a Switch, and I think Microsoft's happy to let them just play Minecraft on whatever platform they want.
Sherman Jacob says, "What are the odds Microsoft buys Warner Brothers Games? Warner Brother Games."
This is like I don't know. It's this question that keeps coming back up because like Warner Brothers has a lot of great IP, obviously, and it has a huge amount of studios, and it has some really high quality studios like Rocksteady, even though they haven't done a huge amount lately. So it could be a good fit. But we talked about before on this show about the fact that I heard Microsoft was skeptical of buying Warner Brothers because of the complexity of some of their IPs. Like, for example, the movie rights to certain franchises are not necessarily, you know, they don't. What I'm saying is they don't want to get into a situation again like they were in with MechAssault, where certain I's weren't dotted and certain T's weren't crossed, and now it means they can't actually, even though they own the MechAssault IP, and they actually outsourced it to a dev who made MechWarrior 5. Like Microsoft literally licensed that IP out. But Microsoft doesn't do anything with the franchise itself and never bought their games to backwards compatibility because they legally aren't 100% sure that they won't get sued by whoever they bought the IP from. And they kind of feel, I heard anyway, that they kind of feel there's a similar potentiality. I'm using that word again. there's a similar thought process that like maybe they'd end up in a weird situation where they own the game rights to certain games, but they're not the movie rights and not the book rights, not the merchandising rights, and it's really complicated. And obviously Warner Brothers owns some like really classic IP like Batman and stuff like that, and it's not as clean as Bethesda. You know, the only like the only like litigation when it comes to IP that I can remember Bethesda having, like, Interplay tried to get away with making a Fallout game, I think, or something, or they tried to say that Fallout MMO wasn't part of their deal or something like that, and then Bethesda just crushed them in court, and that sort of did away any suggestion that Bethesda wasn't the sole owner of the Fallout franchise. And also, like, Bethesda had litigation with Oculus Rift when they said, like, John Carmack took their, like, id Tech secrets to Facebook when he joined Oculus Rift or whatever, or something like that. And like they won that lawsuit as well, I believe. But Microsoft doesn't want that. Microsoft's like, they want to make sure when they buy a studio or a publisher, they want to make sure everything is legally as neat and tidy as possible. And I think with Warner Brothers, there is just so much of a mess there, that probably gives them cold feet. But that's just my guess.
Yeah. Let's see. A whole bunch of people asking about Final Fantasy VII Remake. I mean, there hasn't been any news about it. I'm expecting it not to come to Xbox this year. So yeah, I don't think it comes this year. I hope I'm wrong because I would love for it to be on Xbox, but not sure. Game Genie Prime says, "Is Zocker 87 a nice guy in real life, or no? Zocker's awesome. I just always give him shit though, because he always gives me shit back. So Zocker is an amazing friend. He's a great dude. He's just me and him always just have this thing where we always going at each other. So Troy Perry says, sorry if you guys mentioned earlier what games you want for the next FPS Boost. I think me and Jez both said we wanted Red Dead Redemption 2. And Forza Horizon 3 would be great at 60. Quantum Break, and Rise, and Alan Wake, and Dead Spaces. I mean, there's a whole bunch.
It just randomly popped into my head.
What?
Shadow Complex.
Shadow Complex. Interesting.
Because that had like a terrible frame rate in some parts. Like at the start with the helicopter. Do you remember that? Like frame rate tanking.
Yeah.
Yeah. I love that game. I hate that Epic never made a sequel to that.
Yeah, I don't know. I really liked it too. Tomic RR, will we get Control Ultimate Edition and Game Pass? Probably not. The Control that's in there now is just a regular game. The Ultimate Edition is like essentially for those that want to pay for it. If you want to get the Series X version, which I own and I haven't played yet. HK Gaming's. Do you played it?
Yeah, I don't know. I couldn't get into the game. It didn't sort of grab me.
HK Gaming says, why isn't Cuphead on Game Pass? I think it's probably as simply as they don't want the game on Game Pass, I would imagine.
Yeah, like Microsoft, the studio MDHR, that's their name, right?
Yes.
I always get like initials messed up. But they wholly own the Cuphead IP, I believe, now. I think Microsoft had like a timed publishing deal, but that expired. So it's just a case of they don't want it there, I think.
Yeah.
Microsoft doesn't own Cuphead.
Question mark says, is there any chance Microsoft could buy Blizzard only?
Oh God, if only. No, I don't think so. They merged, man. They are a merged company. It's not that they trade as Activision Blizzard.
Yep.
They don't trade as Activision. They trade as Activision Blizzard. They are like a merged company. So unless Microsoft bought Activision, which that would be pretty massive, you get Blizzard, you get Call of Duty, you get like King and all the mobile games, which is an area Microsoft generally is terrible at. Like, save for Minecraft on mobile phones, they are awful at mobile games. And Solitaire. Solitaire is like this huge game that no one ever talks about. That's got like hundreds of millions of monthly users. But it's just really funny. But it's yeah, they can't buy Blizzard without buying Activision too, I don't think. And who knows, man? Who knows? Maybe this time next year, we'll be talking about like Call of Duty going for Xbox exclusive. Nah, maybe not.
Yeah, probably not. Edwin says, what is the probability of ray tracing coming to Minecraft for console?
High. I believe they're literally working on that. They're like redoing the whole like rendering pipeline and stuff for Minecraft right now. and I think like they realized that Minecraft on Xbox looks significantly worse than Minecraft Java Edition with shaders, and I think that's sort of like a situation they're not particularly hyped about being in. So I would expect that that is something they're working on. And to be honest, I might actually get in touch with them and see what's going on. Because the last thing I heard, there was only like a handful of people working on the rendering engine. Microsoft should probably invest a bit more in that game, considering how big it is. But maybe they will when Tencent releases its competitor.
I guess it's.
Did you say that Tencent's releasing like a game that's sort of basically Minecraft with RPG, like deeper RPG elements?
I did not.
I can't remember.
I did not. It's gonna have a hard time to compete though. So,
yeah, maybe
what
not.
else we got here? Let's see, we got that. We got that. Devin Sangar says super chat. What 360 games do you want to see get the FPS boost? I mean, I said Alan Wake, the Dead Space series,
Dead Space,
Crisis games.
What if Silent Hill Legacy Collection got FPS?
I mean, there's a lot of games on the 360 that were only 30 frames. So
Shadow Complex, Plux.
The BioShock games on the 360, although I think they're 60 frames with the collection on the Xbox One. But yeah, there are a lot of games.
Man, how good was BioShock, man?
Amazing, and it's very sad we didn't get a BioShock game all last gen. Like, isn't that ridiculous?
That is weird.
The entire Xbox One, PS4 generation didn't get a single BioShock game.
Very strange.
Jasper wants to know if there's any rumor about the new Fable setting. I mean, I haven't heard anything about it. Have you?
I haven't got a clue about that game.
Yeah.
It's shrouded in mystery. I think there's a contention, isn't there, where some people want it to be sort of darker and more mature, and then there's other people who want it to sort of stay true to the original with the fart jokes and stuff like that. Where do you fall, Rand? Where do you want that game to go?
I think you can combine both. Like, I want it to be more like Witcher, right? More a realistic take of Fable, but still with the British humor that the series is known for. Although I would get rid of the fart button and the puke button. Like, I don't think that works in 2021. Like, you can still make it a very vibrant game. Like, have sections where it's like extremely oversaturated colors because it's like Fable, but then like very dark areas, because of the evil, but like more realistic, like Witcher, rather than the kind of cartoony aspect of the original Fables. Kind of. Yeah. And I think Playground probably wants to do it that way because like they want to put their own spin on Fable. They just don't want to recreate what another studio did, right? So it's like you can pay homage to Fable and do some things that work. I mean, clearly the cheeky British humor is in, judging from the trailer, right? Yeah. So I just think like some of the other kind of dumb humor stuff, like kicking chickens and farting and all that stuff, you can get rid of.
I think you can keep kicking chickens.
I mean, I think like kick chicken.
I think like you don't have to make it like a systemic thing, where it's like literally an option in the menu to fart. Like, you could make it so like maybe you can go to a bar and drink a load of beer and then fart, like in Sea of Thieves, where you can vomit, but only after you've drunk like tons of beer and stuff like that. I think that's the way they can keep it in as a sort of homage without it interfering with the sort of the core vibe of potentially being more mature. I don't know.
Troy Perry says, would Microsoft ever consider buying back BioWare? I don't know. After some of their recent releases, probably not. I'm interested to find out if EA pulled the plug on Anthem next, because we haven't heard anything about that yet.
Yeah, was that supposed to have happened by now?
I mean, I think it was supposed to happen this week, but Jason said we wouldn't find out about it. So I'm waiting for the Jason tweet at Bloomberg, being like, EA pulls plug on Anthem, all hands on deck for Dragon Age. What is it going to be? 4, 5?
Dragon Age 4, yeah. Age 4.
And then when Dragon Age 4 doesn't do well, it's like, well, your last chance is this Mass Effect, which is a sequel to 3. Right? Like Mass Effect 4.
Ugh, man, I used to love BioWare. We talked about this before on the show, but I used to love BioWare. They're my favorite dev. Dragon Age Inquisition is one of my favorite games of all time. So is Mass Effect 2. And I played Knights of the Old Republic like many years late, and somehow avoided all the spoilers. And even though I played it like literally years later, it was still just a magical experience. So I totally love that dev. And but they're just not what they used to be. They're
Yeah.
just not what they once were. So like even if Microsoft like could buy them back, a lot of the people that made BioWare great have moved on. They've moved on to other studios, or they've just moved on from the industry entirely. Um, I am not confident about the future of that franchise, those franchises at all. But I would love for them to prove me wrong, because there is, Anthem had amazing combat, and so did Mass Effect Andromeda, even though
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't the best Mass Effect game out there. So there's a spark of life in there, but I'm not a bigger fan like I used to be.
Stefan Olsen says, could Microsoft pick up Jade Raymond now when Google shut down Stadia and start a new studio for her? I see some people talking about this. Jade Raymond was head of Stadia Studios. Obviously, she's not there anymore. I don't see Microsoft starting a new studio for her. And let's be honest, your resume follows you around. Jade Raymond hasn't shipped a game since Watch Dogs in 2014. She's bounced around EA, where she didn't ship a game, and then she went to Google Stadia, where she didn't ship a game. So she hasn't shipped anything in almost a decade. So
Yeah.
now, is some of that extra extraneous circumstances that you can't control? Maybe, but I think some people look at Jade and are just like, do you really have what it takes anymore? Has the gaming industry moved past you, right? What do you think, Jazz? Is there some truth to that, or?
I have no idea. I think she has like a track record of building massive franchises for companies. Like obviously she's credited with Assassin's Creed and Watch Dogs, which are both massive franchises for Ubisoft. And I think like working with companies like EA and then working with a company like Google, I think it's easy to forgive the fact she hasn't shipped a game in 10 years, if considering the companies she's had to work for. Like we talk about EA. EA is a company that literally had like the best horror IP in decades. Or well, not decades, but years, They had the best horror IP this side of Resident Evil in a long time, and they just squandered it. Yeah, they had like the best RPG studio in the world, and they squandered it. EA is just seems like a terrible publisher. They just seem awful. They make a lot of money for their shareholders, but when it comes to actually shipping games and having a fan base, they don't care about any of that stuff. So when you're in a position where you're expecting someone to deliver an Assassin's Creed level franchise for you, I can see a scenario where EA probably like just weren't great to work with. So I think she still has the clout to get in with a big publisher and take over its classic a dormant franchise or something like that. But will it be Microsoft? I have no idea. I have no idea if Microsoft like would spin up another studio. Maybe they would.
Nah,
With the
for
right,
her, I don't think so. And there's too much of a risk.
not specifically for her, but like maybe they spin up a studio to build some IP or something, and then maybe she comes in after the fact. I don't know.
Oh, well, I
But
guess we're just gonna have to wait and see. Notjack says, "Does Judd say anything today to give clickbait journalists a new headline?"
I don't think
I
so.
don't think so. Although I'm surprised what you said last week about the stuff about Microsoft's ambitions, plans for the future. Nobody picked up on, right?
Yeah, but maybe that's because we like laughed so much about someone
Yeah, that
picking
is
up on
true.
it.
Maybe
Made them not want to do it.
yeah. Maybe they were listening to that. I was like, huh.
Maybe they were like, "Are they baiting us?"
Yeah.
Maybe we are.
Let's see here.
Maybe everything we say is bait.
George
Maybe you
says
can't say
Brandon Adler would be working on it, and he's working on an unannounced Obsidian game. It can make sense, referring to Conker. Like I said, I mean, we'll have to see. We'll have to see about that. I just personally don't believe it. R89 says Xbox should ink Shannon Studstill. Honestly, I don't know who that is. I'm sorry.
What was the name?
Shannon Studstill. Oh, is she the was she the head of Sony Santa Monica when she went over to Google and then Google pulled the plug on it all?
Yeah. Shannon Studstill is known for her work on God of War 3, and Alien Terminator.
Alien Terminator. Oh man.
I don't know. It says here that. Oh yeah. Okay. Right. She was the other big name that was in Google's stable.
Yeah, she was.
And yeah. Okay. So yeah. Bloody Google. What are they like, eh? So yeah, I'm sure Microsoft is like Microsoft opened the initiative in Santa Monica for a reason, you know. It's because there is just an abundance of talent down there, and there's also like a culture of there's also like a game dev culture and stuff like that that they couldn't previously tap into because they didn't have a studio down there. So that's one of the reasons I heard for them wanting to open a studio specifically in that area. So you know, maybe they could, you know. Who knows? Maybe they want to expand the scope of Perfect Dark and expand the scope of the initiative in the future and pick up some more talent. They've already got a ton of really amazing talent in that studio, so who knows what could happen.
Yep.
I could see that.
Question mark says, please, before you go, tell Jez we love him. So the people love you in the chat. And that's going to be the last comment we take. It's almost approaching 3 hours for the podcast, which is not planning to go this long, but, you know, it's extra listening for everybody. You know, if you guys enjoyed the show, hit the like button. We'll be back, hopefully, on Friday. And who knows what's going to happen in the video game industry this week. It's always something. I didn't think they would announce a wireless headset. So that was pretty interesting. Maybe the Bethesda deal closes this week. You never know what's going to happen in the video game industry when it comes to Xbox, right? But one thing you always know is that a lot of people will take that Xbox news and turn it sour, right? That's something you can always count on.
That is a high...
you can take the positive Xbox news and turn it into a negative. Somehow, some way, they'll do it every single time.
There's a high potentiality for that to happen.
There's a very high potentiality for that to happen. So with that said, I hope everybody has a good rest of the week. Enjoy your weekend. And we'll be back on Friday. You got anything to say, Jez, before we get out of here?
Nah, just, you know, you guys are awesome. And thank you so much for being awesome.
So someone said no Dying Light tech land for Microsoft. I mean, we talked about it during the show last week because the rumor had just come out. So if there's more movement on it, maybe we'll talk about it next time. But until then, later, guys. Have a